Welcome everyone to tonight's virtual meeting of the Port Phillip City Council. The City of Port Phillip respectfully acknowledges the Yaluk Wurrung clan of the Boonwurrung and the traditional owners of the other lands we meet from today. We pay our respects to their elders, both past and present. We acknowledge and uphold their continuing relationship to this land. So due to the current COVID restrictions, tonight's meeting is being held via the Webex platform and also streamed via Council's webcast page and Facebook Live. Now, as we've planned for this online meeting, there are always things beyond our control and there may be technical issues that arise. If we experience technical difficulties, we will adjourn the meeting for a short time to resolve the issue. And if for some reason the issue cannot be resolved, we will adjourn to a later day and details will be circulated as soon as we can. Now, to manage the significant number of attendees logged into the platform tonight, the meeting will be split into several parts and will suspend for short breaks to allow officers to administer the virtual speakers, the next group to come through. So, councillors, do we have any apologies for tonight? There being none, we'll move on to which is declarations of conflicts of interest. So I will at this point remind councillors that tonight's meeting is strictly for the purpose of hearing submissions from members of the public. It is not for discussion, debating or deciding the budget, and we do not wish to prejudice any council decision on the council plan and budget. Now, whilst councillors may ask clarifying questions of the public or of officers, if councillors enter into any debate or comment on the budget, conflict of interest provisions would apply and councillors will need to consider their potential for conflicts and whether they need to remove themselves from the meeting. So we're moving on to item 3, which is the presentation of reports. Now we do have just the one report to consider tonight, and that's to hear the submissions from members of the public on our Council Plan 2021 to 31 and Budget 2021-22. It's wonderful that we have so many people engaged in our community and speaking tonight, but because there is such a large number, about 84, I am going to ask each speaker to limit their speech to 2 minutes, and when we hit that mark, I will ask you to wrap up quickly. So apologies in advance, I will have to keep the meeting moving tonight. You might consider avoiding repeating points that have already been made by other speakers. And I also remind members of the public addressing council, you must extend due courtesy and respect to council and the processes under which it operates, and must take direction from the chair whenever called on to do so. Speakers must remain respectful, and statements or questions must not be defamatory, offensive or objectionable, aimed at embarrassing a councillor or a member of council staff, or relate to a matter outside the powers of council. So we're going to move to our first speaker of this evening. If all speakers could state their name and suburb and then take their 2 minutes. So I'd like to invite Mr. Josh Burns, MP, our local federal member for McNamara. Are you with us, Josh?
I am, Mayor. Maybe if you can all hear me, you can give a little wave or something like that.
I can hear you.
Lovely,
so,
lovely.
So Josh, if you could state your suburb and then please take 2 minutes.
Certainly. My name is Josh Burns. I'm the federal member for McNamara, and I'm currently beaming in from St Kilda. But my electorate encompasses the entire city of Port Phillip. I'm going to just focus my remarks this evening on one aspect of the upcoming budget. And first of all, can I say thank you, councillors, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to present to you. The item that I'm speaking to in regards to the 6 City of Port Phillip arts organisations who came to the end of their $30,000 a year annual funding from the City of Port Phillip. And I would ask and urge the council to reinstate that program. I understand there are many worthy recipients, but the City of Port Phillip is iconically a creative city. It is a place where I've seen many of the councillors out at community events across the entire political spectrum. It's a part of who we are in Port Phillip. It's a part of our local community that makes us so proud, and it's such a wonderful part of it. And this pandemic has been devastating to our local creative organisations. It's been devastating for our artists. It's been devastating financially and emotionally. And I would just say to you tonight that as the City of Port Phillip and your job as councillors of this and the custodians of our wonderful community, please ensure that this is not the time where we are ceasing funding for our creative organisations. This is a time where we should be increasing funding for our creative organisations. And I know that you have many budgetary decisions to make, and there are many, many hearings and submissions tonight. But my message to you, along with the Minister for Health, Martin Foley, who is in lockstep with me, is that we will keep pushing you to support our local creative industries. It has been devastating over the COVID pandemic, and I would ask you to consider all of that in your upcoming budget deliberations. Other than that, Mayor, I hope you all stay safe, stay well, and I look forward to seeing you in real life at upcoming events in the city of Port Phillip.
Thank you, Josh. I now call on Frida Erlich. If you could state your name and suburb.
Yes, hello. Frida Erlich from St Kilda. I'm the chair of the Older Persons Consultative Committee. The Older Persons Consultative Committee would like to demonstrate that by looking after the needs of older people in the city of Port Phillip, that the council enhances the lives of every resident. And that, to break it down, means seeking the opinions of older people in all council policies and making sure that your communications are reaching the older and vulnerable part of our population as well. So I'd like to begin with the basics, and what could be more basic than public toilets? It is an unfortunate fact of life that as we get older, some of us need to use the facilities more often. The OPCC recommends more resources for public toilets to ensure that they are all in key public places, that they're accessible, clean, there is adequate toilet paper, and especially with COVID, soap. And likewise with seating, older people require comfortable, accessible seating that ideally is shaded. We recommend an audit of public seating in Port Phillip to bring our public seating up to a good standard. As well, footpaths, another essential service, need to have safe, even, well-graded surfaces. They therefore require maintenance and an adequate budget to provide this. Good footpaths, good lighting, adequate good toilets and seating will encourage older people to go outside to exercise and socialise. These are all within the responsibility and capability of council, and they will also all contribute to the well-being of our community. On to housing. We know that the cohort of older women becoming homeless is increasing. The OPCC takes a great interest in this statistic and also is very proud and urges council to continue the long tradition of providing exceptional social housing. This means more research, more advocacy to other levels of government, and more funding itself.
Thank you, Frida.
In the same, pardon?
It's 2 minutes.
Okay, also I wanted to say that aged care is important, and council should consider keeping people at home as much as possible by keeping up those exceptional services. Thank you very much, and Coralie Ling will continue.
Thank you. So Coralie Ling, are you with us?
Can you hear me?
I can indeed, Coralie. If you could
Oh,
state
good.
your name and suburb and
Yes,
please speak.
my name is Coralie Ling and I live in St Kilda, and I am the Deputy Chair of the Older Persons Consultative Committee. We're very concerned that funding be given so that ageism may be combated, and we consider that what's good for older people is good for the whole community. And so we need a budget allocation for awareness raising. One specific issue is that we need fee waivers for community hire for people over 60. We're also, of course, concerned about sustainability, and we encourage support for the Eco Centre, and we recognise that climate change affects the health of older people as well as many others, of course, and we need to be energy wise, and we need education on waste management, education for the future, especially for the sustainability of our city, so that there will be a place for younger people in the future. And we also are concerned about funding for disability. We know there's a disability worker, but we feel that there needs to be a committee to focus on the work of the well-being of people who are disabled. And we recognise there's a variety of needs of differently abled people, physical and mental, young and old. And so we would hope for funding for a committee to work with the disability worker. And we're also, of course, concerned about communication. We recognise that many of the residents, older people and others, do not have access to the internet, and we need to have funding for the printing of diversity and funding for digital literary programs for those who want to learn. And we want older people to be supported in their functions, such as the Seniors Festival, where we do music, dancing and writing. We want user-friendly libraries, funding to continue for libraries as well, and community transport. And we recognise that the well-being of the city of Port Phillip depends also on the well-being of older people. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Coralie. I now call on Anu Bajwa. Are you with us, Anu?
Hi, Louise. It's Anu Bajwa, and yes, I am here. Thank you.
Anu, apologies for the mispronunciation. If you could please state your suburb and then please speak.
Sure. Louise, I'm here with Craig Francis, the treasurer. I'm from Glen Ira, and I'm representing Space to be as a board member. And good evening to you.
Great. Please take your 2 minutes.
I do need to interject because Craig Francis was doing the intro, so I don't know if he's dropped out or if he hasn't been connected.
I'm not sure. He's listed below you. Do I need to speak to him first? Do you want
That's right.
that be better?
That's right. Yes, please.
Okay. Is that so? Craig, are you with us?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah, Craig. If you could state your name, suburb, and then please speak.
Yes, Craig Francis from Sandringham. Anu's and mine was actually 2 minutes between us, so I'll be very quick. Thank you. Good evening, councillors. As set out in the 10-year council community vision, it's absolutely critical for Port Phillip to continue to be even more inclusive and even more vibrant. And we'd like to illustrate how we can greatly assist you with that in these 2 minutes. As a team, we're here on behalf of the Space to Be board. We're a unique and vital local social enterprise. We need budgetary support to enable us to transition from volunteers to essential paid staff to continue our work in Port Phillip. I'll hand over to Anu to take you through the rest of the submission.
Namaste again, councillors. Now, while our submission is in front of you, I'm here to provide a human face to consider what Space to Be really does within the community. We have developed an entirely new art and cultural precinct that locals love. Our events, festivals, retail, artist and catering partnerships bring together your culturally diverse populations to collaborate with locals. We provide work experience in a safe and welcoming environment and a place to connect. We are the only organisation in Port Phillip that provides this essential support to vulnerable people from different backgrounds. That crucial first opportunity makes us feel we belong. With your help, Space to Be ran Council's first ever Diwali festival, aiming to create meaningful connections with the invisible, vulnerable Indian community, of which I am one. They are very challenging to draw out, but whilst we targeted 200, over 650 attended, including local businesses, schools, and artists. From a personal perspective, the Diwali festival was the first time in 20 years that I felt I was truly home, and I know it did that for others. Without funding, we cannot continue. Who else will provide these crucial services, the carefully built connections, and spaces for empowerment to your vulnerable new communities to thrive in their new home? I'll leave you with that thought, and namaste again.
Anu, thank you very much. I call on Trina Lewis. Trina, if you could state your name and suburb, please, and then begin.
Trina Lewis, South Melbourne. I support zero rate rises and a change to the spending mentality of this council. Your proposed rate rise is ahead of CPI and average wage increases. The compound effect of years of rate rises leave Port Phillip's rates far ahead of comparable councils. It's very hard to see how Port Phillip can justify these higher rates. Excuse me. Rates are becoming unaffordable for so many, and it's unfair to continue to put so many under such financial strain. And it's important to note that the average rates measure that you use is not appropriate for Port Phillip as due to the high number of apartments across Port Phillip. I want to start at the top with the pervasive mindset behind this spending. As a council, you need to try reframing, or a true reframing, of your mindset and operating principles. Over the years, the mindset of the council has strongly appeared to be that of rates being like a magic pudding that is endless and there for the taking. You need a total reset. Rather than what can I spend all this money on, ask, if I had 10% less rate income, what reasonable trade-offs can we make? Ask why more. Why are we doing this? Is it required for the broad base of ratepayers, or is it giving too much to relatively few? And what would happen if we didn't provide it? I suggest you start with a fresh set of zero-based accounting principles around spending. If we were to start with a blank sheet, would the budget item from last year be on the list this year? What would the majority of the community value even more than this particular item? And where are the, and where are the truly impactful, forward-thinking environmental sustainability issues? Where are they? Green bins would be a good start, but I'm not, it's so disappointing.
So Trina, that's your 2 minutes. If you could just wrap up, please.
Thank you. So I implore you to make the hard decisions instead of trying to please everyone, change the mindset and stop wasting money on initiatives outside your remit and that earn you political favour with loud minority groups. Thank you.
Thank you. I call on Hugo Armstrong, please. Hugo, are you there?
Hello.
Hello, Hugo. If you could state your name and suburb.
Yeah, I am.
Great.
Sure. Hugo Armstrong. I'm from Port Melbourne, and I speak on behalf of the Association of Community Sports Clubs in Albert Park Reserve, which comprises about 24 community sports clubs on land and water who are based in the park. They have at least 6,000 members between them, and the great majority of them are Port Phillip residents and ratepayers. You'll be pleased to hear that, having received our submission, I won't be repeating it tonight, and unlike perhaps some other speakers, our requests are quite specific and fairly simple, and I stress won't cost the council a single cent. We're simply asking that, given its strategic importance to the council and the people of Port Phillip, that Albert Park Reserve be mentioned in the budget and plan. And there are two specific steps we ask the council to take to do this. Firstly, and I should just note that Albert Park Reserve is not mentioned at all in either document in their draft form. So firstly, we ask the council to insert a paragraph into both the council budget and plan, committing to advocate to state and federal governments, Parks Victoria and other relevant external authorities for funding for community sport and other infrastructure in Albert Park Reserve to support residents and ratepayers who use the park. We've proposed some wording in our submission and would be very happy to discuss any further refinements. Secondly, we ask that 2 action points from the Council's Sport and Recreation Strategy of 2015 to 2024 be incorporated into the Council plan to provide this recognition. These points commit the Council to develop a Memorandum of Understanding with Parks Victoria and also a policy on infrastructure contributions for open space resources, including Elwood Park Reserve. These are actions 1.3.1 and 3.2.1 from that Council Sport and Recreation Strategy. We're not expecting or asking Council to fund the necessary works. We're simply asking Council to provide a degree of recognition and advocacy for sport and recreation within Albert Park Reserve for its residents and ratepayers. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Hugo. Jack Ravens, could you please state your name and suburb and then please speak, sir?
Hi guys, thanks so much and good evening. I'm slightly a bit emotional and sometimes a bit embarrassed to say that I have a shop and come from Middle Park at the moment. My name is Jack Evans. I'm the owner and operator of Middle Park Fitness in Armstrong Street in Middle Park. I'd like to add I have surveyed all the fellow shops in the strip and have signatures from all the shopkeepers supporting my presentation tonight, which I'm happy to forward if required. I've been operating in Middle Park since late last century in 1998 and residing since 1994. In that time, I've seen a bustling, active village atmosphere slowly dissolve in what can best be described as a sad, dreary laneway. We used to be a great village, and a lot of the requests tonight have been about community spirit and community things and facilities, and Middle Park used to have that. I'd like to make a budget submission for consideration to help establish the Middle Park Traders Association that will help us survive and revive. And it's not a reaction just from COVID. This has been happening for many years, the deterioration. This will enable a professional consultant to be employed and develop a business case that will make the required positive change. With the help of the council, we can gather some momentum, professionals' input and fellow traders to invigorate the village and bring it back to its former glory. Because you don't just live in a village, you need the people of the village to keep coming to keep the village alive. So rather than keep emotional, I encourage everyone to get in motion and keep our village moving in a more positive direction. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Jack. Linda Condon. Linda.
Hi, how are you?
Good, I'm good. Could you please state your name and suburb and please speak?
It's Linda Condon from Elwood Park. The draft budget of 2021 includes several service reductions, which total around 0.68 million in savings. It seems that this relatively small saving will have a long and lasting adverse impact on both access to Ripponlea, 6 art programs, including Red Stitch and Theatre Works, and any person meeting with business or communities, any in-person meetings with business or communities, and no funding for sustainability business network events, and no PPAs with other council. I question whether this small saving is necessary when council professes to have 90 million in reserve. The important and well-articulated Green Line proposal put forward by PCAN has also been overlooked by council. However, my greatest concern is that although the council has signed onto a climate emergency declaration, we are now one of only a few who have not put forward a consolidated climate emergency action plan to support the declaration. The other councils in our vicinity, and these are not the usual progressive councils in Victoria, are Stonnington, Kingston, Glenara and Bayside, which have all developed and commenced the implementation of climate emergency action plans. A well-developed climate emergency action plan addresses the sustainability issues in a stronger and more focused way by articulating a strategic vision, targets, timeframes and budgets in key program areas, especially community emissions, public space, integrated blue and green infrastructure, and education and communication. A plan like this would also consolidate the current various action plans around sustainability, which are very confusing for most of us, and would make it much easier for community to see the work council is doing. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you very much, Linda. Simon Strickland.
Good evening, councillors and mayor. My name is Simon Strickland. I'm the president of the Albert Park Bowls Club and I live in Albert Park.
Fantastic. Simon, please speak to your item.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to talk to you briefly about the renovations proposed for the Albert Park Bowls Club. The bowling green in St Vincent's Place has been there since the garden's inception, and the club itself was founded in 1873. On behalf of the club, I'd like to thank you for including money in next year's draft budget to review the proposed changes to the clubhouse, phase 1 of which the clubhouse toilets is shown in the diagrams appended to the written submission I made. The process of consultation started in 2013 around renovations of the clubhouse and has involved both yourselves and the state government. By the end of 2019, we'd achieved a general agreement to proceed with various stages of renovation. And that one that I presented to you, phase one, was agreed by the then council that they would assist us with. In brief, we plan to reconfigure the ladies' facilities to exclude them from the general run of the clubhouse. At the moment, their locker room is basically on a path from the green to the bar, which is interesting. And to give the ladies some much needed privacy. About half our club members are female, and that's quite a significant difference from the average Victorian bowls club, where about a third or less than a third is female. As a consequence of that,
Simon, you're cutting out. Are you able to move?
Relocate our office to an extension within
Simon, I'm just going to ask you to pause.
This area.
Simon, can you hear me?
We'll relocate the men's change room to remove the line.
Simon, I can't hear you at all. Are you able to pause for a moment and we'll come back to you? All right, I'm going to have to. No, it's not. I'm going to put you back onto our offices and see if you can come back for the second half of your speech. But I just will move on in the meantime to Georgina Salazar. Georgina, are you there?
I'm hoping you can all hear me.
Yes, we can. If you could state your name and suburb and then please speak.
My name is Georgina Salazar. I live in Elwood and I'm here as the chair of the Multicultural Advisory Committee. And I'd like to thank Council for the opportunity to speak to our submission. Our concerns around the plan specifically, we would like the Our City, Our People section of the plan to include an explicit statement about migration history in Port Phillip and the contribution that this migration has made to the character of the city, particularly through generations of migrants, refugees and asylum seekers. Our second point about the plan is we believe it should include a statement about social cohesion and the role that intercultural understanding has in building and sustaining cohesion. Our third point about the plan is to note that our committee is committed to the notion of intersectionality and advocates that a framework standard for ethnic diversity is adopted alongside other diversity frameworks. These exist. Welcoming Cities is one, for example. With regard to the budget specifically, we would like assurances that any cuts that are being mooted, for example, with the CIS counters or libraries and childcare, are audited for the possible impact of these cuts on vulnerable minority communities. We have a particular concern with housing, and we note that asylum seekers, refugees and possibly people like international students may not be covered by existing programs and so on. Similarly, with homelessness, we're concerned that a number of minority people may in fact remain invisible. Employment is another concern we have, and I think that's been highlighted through the crisis that international students have faced recently. And we'd ask for this to be an ongoing priority for the Council, including support for migrant businesses which tend to employ migrants. Communication is vital, and we've seen how it can actually save lives. MAC wants Council to implement a communication plan that accommodates various ways of communicating in a range of languages. And I'd like to finish off with positive messaging about diverse communities. For example, refugee welcoming banners. These have become optional rather than imperative.
Thank you very much. Great. Tim Norman. Tim, if you could state your name and suburb and then please speak.
Yes, my name is Tim Norman and I live in Port Melbourne. and thank you, Mayor and Councillors, for listening to my presentation. The dominant physical feature of the city is the bay, and I'm here to speak on two initiatives to enhance current council facilities beside the bay. Those are notably create a landscaped picnic area and so on in a currently unloved site, and to upgrade facilities, change rooms, toilets, etc., in an adjacent building. I want to make a couple of points around that. You have the proposals, you've had the proposal submissions for some time, of course. I just want to emphasize that these proposals have been prepared with the support and endorsement of Albert Park College, of the Port Melbourne Life Saving Club, and the Beacon Cove Neighbourhood Association. And these organizations between them represent at least 3,000 residents. Moving on, I wanted to emphasize a couple of things. That the timing on these is important for the city, if you like, in terms of efficiency and so on. And let me explain why. With regard to the picnic and barbecue site, that has a few elements associated with it, but it is also the area that is currently involved or going to be involved very shortly in the lighting upgrade that the city has already funded along the foreshore. So this is another stage of that. You'd be well aware of that, of course. That, as I understand from the project manager, is funded and scheduled to restart in June, so this month, and most of the work will happen in the next financial year. That's going to involve significant work like trenching and so on around the area and extending power supply and so on to areas that this project that I'm referring to could also use. So I guess in terms of efficiency, the time is now. It's important to do that. The other part of that is because the extensive work they're going to do to, I call it, rip up and install the new power for that lighting upgrade. They're also going to have to undertake significant remediation, and they have landscaping plans associated with that. And it's a small effort really to adapt those landscape plans to make them suitable for the community to use as picnic grounds afterward.
Tim, I am going to have to ask you to wrap up, if I may, please.
Sure. Very briefly, in regard to the toilets and change rooms, be aware that in the area, there's significant courses being run, particularly over summer, to educate, and we're looking at 1,000 to 2,000 students to educate people, students, juniors, and adults in water safety, because drowning has become, as you know, perhaps last year, drowning has become a significant event.
Thank you, Tim. I will have to wrap it up there. Thank you very much, sir. If I could get Adrian James.
Oh, hello, it's Adrian James. Can you hear me?
Yes, and could you state your suburb and then please speak, Adrian?
Right, it's Adrian James, Elwood. Thank you very much for the opportunity to address you, councillors and mayor. My submission is regarding the Eco Centre Garden program. It's a small program that only works on Fridays, and I've been a long-term volunteer. When I first came to Elwood to live 9 years ago, I found the garden and the garden group and found an absolutely glorious connection with people. You know, in your future plans, you outline several areas of increasing active living, improving mental well-being, and tackling climate change. And I can't think of any program that ticks all these boxes. The Friday program provides friendship, meaningful activity, exercise. We learn about plants and food as a social activity group. It's a collective ownership of the program. We tie to the Eco Centre grounds. The composting process there processes tons of community compost each year. Thus, we don't have to use landfill for that. What I found in my many work and private situations of being in community groups, I've never found a group quite like this before. The people who come to volunteer in the garden are often people who are very socially isolated. They don't have places where they can get into the ground at all and grow anything. There's older people, there's young people, there's people from many different cultures and socioeconomic backgrounds and with different abilities. For example, there's some people with early Alzheimer's there. Everyone is made to feel really welcome and part of the group, and long-lasting friendships have really happened from that. I've got some very, very close friends that I've made from being involved in the group. During lockdown, we regularly Zoomed and people phoned each other to stay connected, which was wonderful. And I just think in this age of social isolation and disconnection, this is a group that shows how people can get connected from all walks of life and all age groups. And if anything, it could be an example that the council could use as an example to other councils of how to engage and involve local projects.
Thank
just
you.
To finish, I can't
just to
see.
finish, yes? No,
why,
if you could wrap up.
I can't see why we've cut such a great program. It punches way above its weight and for less than $20,000. So please think of retaining it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Siegfried Anger, are you there, Siegfried? If you could state your name and please speak for 2 minutes.
Good evening, Louise. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Siegfried Anger. I'm beaming in from Albert Park. I'm the president of the Port Phillip Energy Cooperative. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to present our 30-year net zero billing financial vision for the council. The PPEC is a distributed cooperative with 2,001,000 shares. The PPEC is part of the Victorian Government battery and solar farm supply chain. We operate within the Victorian Government Regulatory Framework 2030-2050 roadmap and have agreements and contracts with AGL, Energy Australia, the Geelong Sustainability Association, the Victorian Union Movement, and 4 other regional cooperatives and a number of private companies. There are 2 Melbourne interconnectors in need of urgent upgrade. We have been asked by AEMO to contribute to the Heidelberg and Richmond interconnectors. The Richmond interconnector services Port Phillip. Our response is that we prefer to build a large community-owned battery sponge in the Port Phillip area that features 1 gigawatt of rooftop solar and a distributed battery storage network of 300 megawatts to service our businesses and to reduce energy costs. This will secure at least 35% of the Port Phillip energy supply in local self-generation and storage. We will discuss the virtual power plant that this implies with PowerCore in the next few weeks. The Port Phillip Energy Cooperative is in the process of finalising its white label retailer agreement with the Union Cooperative Power. This gives the Port Phillip Energy Cooperative access to 1.5 million union members and an additional 34 regional businesses and councils. Next week, we hope to welcome 200,000 teacher union members. We are interested in collaborating with the Port Phillip Council not only because of our stated social impact investment mission, but also because we believe that we can offer Council genuine financial returns and lower cost solutions for its 10-year energy budget going forward. Why is that? We own our own supply chain and manufacture locally. We are a fully integrated cooperative offering expertise in solar, batteries, carbon credits, financial services, IoT services, building management, and VP services. We offer dividends to shareholders and a comprehensive social impact model dedicated to returning profits to our residents and business and council. I'm happy to take any questions, and if you wish to email me, please do so at awei.australia@gmail.com.
Thank you very much, Siegfried. Scott Graham, are you there?
Thank you. Yeah, I am. Thank you, Mayor. My name is Scott Graham and I live in Port Melbourne. I'm representing the Port Melbourne Baseball Club tonight to request a budget allocation in the next financial year for the construction of a multi-purpose indoor facility, providing a space that is capable of the following. As a sport with summer and winter seasons, our players have to deal with the elements, particularly in winter. We've got no cover or ability to practice in low light or rain. The players' development suffers as a result. The indoor tunnels and an overall facility will allow the club and Port as a sports community to train more effectively and efficiently. Although limited on physical baseball field space, the addition of an indoor facility allows multiple teams to practice simultaneously and also allows practice to extend into the evening hours. Light weights and sports technology will allow our players to fully incorporate development programs arm and body care, and proper training to elevate their skills. It'll support the significant growth in player numbers driven by diversity and inclusion. We're expecting our largest growth in players in our 92-year history. And in the next 12 months, we have a new senior team, including 12 Taiwanese players who have approached us to play, a new senior team, including a number of Venezuelan players who have approached us to play, a new women's team, and also a masters team. It'll improve player safety and spectator safety on the reserve. During training, baseballs regularly fly over the fence onto soccer pitch and the football and cricket ovals. The ability to train inside in a purpose-built facility would significantly reduce this risk on Murphy's Reserve. It's proposed that the requested facility be of a multi-purpose nature, could be used for other sports on the reserve, to use for inclement weather, or even for students of the new Fisherman's Bend Secondary School and also local primary schools. The club's passionate about giving back to the community, as highlighted by our annual Pink Ladies fundraiser, and our junior program also supports Black Dog mental health. It'll provide essential support to our junior and our T-ball programs. In recent months, we've had 4 of our players represent our club at the state and national championships. We've assisted Albert Park College to run their baseball program, and we've also undertaken numerous baseball programs at the local primary school. We've seen a number of our local baseball clubs, including Newport and Essendon, construct multi-purpose tunnels, and we've seen a significant spike in their development over the years.
So, Scott, I will have to ask you to wrap up if you could, sir.
Will do. Thanks, Louise. As a result of this request and the fact we're the only club on Murphy's Reserve that does not have lights, whilst we appreciate the provision of these lights has been included in the council's longer-term plans, we request that as part of this proposal, that consideration is given to incorporating lighting into this application so that they can be completed at the same time. Thank you, members of council. Much appreciated.
Thank you, Scott. I now call on Michael Crudson.
Hello.
Michael, are you with us?
Can you hear me?
If you could speak up, you're very quiet.
I'm not at all quiet, and I will try
No,
to speak
that's
up.
fantastic.
Okay.
If you could state your name and suburb and then please speak.
Yes, my name is Michael Crudson. I'm in St Kilda, and I'm a resident of this area for 50 years. I'm a ratepayer, a business owner, and a clinical and forensic psychologist. And I speak in a very narrow sense, yet the essence of what I'm about to say rests on the very premise of what local government is about. I have heard much in the lead up to the last council elections that more emphasis should be placed on things which are of a material nature and are very necessary. And I agree with that. It's absolutely important. I also praise the people who take time to administer the city. I think they're doing a very noble job. Where I think there is an error is that local government has a role in the establishment of community. And it is often said that many of the activities which the city of Port Phillip has prided itself upon should be the province of the state or federal governments. I want to disagree. And I've been incredibly impressed by hearing of the range of specific arguments which have been promoted tonight. And I would imagine that that will give councillors a great deal to consider in respect of revising their triennial budget. However, I want to stress that the arts seem to be overlooked. Too often decried as not being important, they play an integral part in the community, and it's the development of community which makes not only this country or this state, but it makes this community of Port Phillip in its 20+ square kilometres of land and what, 113, 114,000 people. The arts can be likened to being the connective tissue that binds the organic process of community development. The role of culture is intrinsic to human development. Ever since somebody in a cave somewhere started to scrawl on the side of a cave, we have learned to communicate, and we have developed the process that we now know as the arts. It is very concerning that in the present triennium estimates that the 9 key arts organisations fostered by Port Phillip in a long established tradition in this area have been just ignored. They're just don't seem to rate. I ask that a serious review be given to this. It is not only that they do provide entertainment, stimulation, a basis of communication, but they also provide a very valuable economic resource for the community. People come to see the international standard of productions that come out of organisations such as Red Stitch, the multi-talented inclusive organisation Raucous, and many others. The Australian Tapestry Workshop comes to mind. Yet these organisations have been forgotten.
I will have to ask you to wrap up, if I may, sir.
Okay. The arts contribute rather more money to the community than we think, 4% at least of the GDP. Councillors, please reconsider the value, not only in economic but in cultural terms, of this current omission. I thank you.
Thank you, Michael. I call on Helen Halliday. Helen, are you there? What about Jack? Jack Halliday, are you there?
Sorry.
Oh, there you are, Helen. Hi.
Sorry. Hi, Louise.
Right.
I'll speak first if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure.
Councillors, in 2019, BEST was formed to advance the interests of one area of the city, Balaclava, because of its visible decline. The following are our key points. Outcomes rely on timely and accurate information. Information has been provided by the Department of Environment, Land, Water and Planning and confirms that between 2013 and 2018, canopy cover whilst improving in the areas north of Fitzroy Street actually declined in the area south of Fitzroy Street. Secondly, the tree planting program, which started in 2017 and is due for completion in 2022, has barely touched Balaclava. Work planned and completed only partially addresses most identified hotspots in our area, such as Woodstock Street. The final public spaces strategy was due for release in 2020. It's now 2021. The draft identified that the area east of Brighton Road had 5% open space compared to over 30% in other areas of the city. Timelines have extended whilst business as usual is evident in the streets and parks in this part of the city. Despite these identified deficiencies, investment in this area continues to trail well behind the other parts of the city. A question was asked of the financial officer in that regard last week, and he failed to address the issue. The current budget deficiency in this regard is not new, it's ongoing. The recently proposed sale of key sites in the Carlisle Street Shopping Centre should be used as a financial resource and catalyst to unleash the potential of the area. We appreciate the efforts that have been made by individual officers to promote new ideas such as Bothwell Street and wish to build on this and see the use of a specific and targeted delivery model with the capacity to identify and respond to needs creatively. These ideas in the green line will be spoken about further. Thank you.
Thank you, Helen. Jack Halliday.
Thank you, Mayor.
If you could state your name and suburb, please.
Jack Halliday from Balaclava. Good evening, councillors. While the current council declared a climate emergency earlier this year, its deep divisions have prevented that declaration being developed into a climate emergency action plan. In that respect, it's different to all the councils around us, Bayside, Stonington, Glen Eira and Kingston, once all thought to be stodgy and conservative, but which have all committed to comprehensive and ambitious climate emergency action plans. Instead, we have a most disappointing document, the Climate Emergency Response, which sets out the areas which Council's not funding, primarily the important community programs like Enviro Leaders, solar programs, smart solutions for business and a power purchase agreement with local industry to make inroads into our 2 million tonnes of emissions each year. Other important programs like open space and new parks in areas of need have also been overlooked, and the Sustainability Department will be left with less than 1% of council's more than 800 staff. Under the leadership section of the council's response, it states that the council will advocate to the state and Commonwealth governments for stronger climate action. But how can it do that in good faith when it's not providing funding for environment programs, including parks and open space in areas of greatest need? If council wishes to advocate for more action by state and federal governments, then it needs to match this advocacy with strong action of its own locally. The issue of defunding and closing down key community programs is too important to play politics with. These are not narrowly environmental programs. They have huge and significant implications for community safety, health and amenity. We urge all councillors to recognise the importance of these key programs and commit to the development of a climate emergency action plan to be completed this year and to commence implementation in 2022. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. I'm now going to come back to Simon Strickland to hear the second part to his speech. Simon, are you there? Oh, we still don't have Simon. Okay.
Through you, Mayor, I think we've lost. Actually, if you would like to try Simon again.
Simon, are you with us?
I hope so.
Yes, great. If you could, we heard the first half. If you could take the second half of what you were speaking to, I think we got lost around. Remember reconfiguring for the women's
right.
or something like that.
Thank you for letting me have another go at this. So what we're planning to do is reconfigure the ladies' locker room so that they're no longer part of a thoroughfare between the green and the bar, and that will give them some privacy, which currently they don't enjoy. And as about half our club members are female, it's kind of important that we do that. A consequence of that is that our office will go away, so we'll have to build a small extension on the existing building within our existing lease area. And we will also relocate the men's change room entrance so you can't see the men in their change room while you're inside the main clubhouse. We're looking forward to working with your officers in 21-22 to progress commitment to funding, and it would be terrific if we could achieve that by 2023, which is our 150-year celebration year. I'm happy to take any questions, and I'm sorry for the technical problem.
Oh no, technology gets the best of us at any moment. Thank you, Simon. Matthew Unsworth.
Yeah, hi, my name's Matt Unsworth. I live in Albert Park and I'm speaking tonight to object against the rate increase that's proposed in the draft budget. I will gladly support a council that stands as a benchmark of efficiency through the payment of my annual rates. But to do that, I need to trust that councillors elected by my community are requiring that council management operates to the lowest cost standard. This trust is built on two things: transparency and accountability. I'm a resident, I'm a ratepayer, I'm a voter, and I'm appalled by the lack of transparency around cost management at council level. And I'm bitterly disappointed that my elected representatives are not demanding greater accountability. The rate-paying resident should not always have to foot the bill for financial incompetence at council level, and it will no longer be tolerated. The rate-paying community is aware that the numbers just do not stack up, and as councillors, you have a fiduciary duty to the community in becoming more active and more vocal in asking why. Why is it that residents of the city of Port Phillip have to accept council staff costs that are 90% higher than in neighbouring Bayside? Why does our council need a staff of 70 people in the finance department to manage a budget of just $230 million? And why is it that council is allowed to spend $13 million every year on external consultants? There's no doubt that from the numbers of staff that I've just talked to, they've got the capacity to do the work themselves, unless they've clearly hired the wrong people. I suspect that in asking these questions, you won't get immediate answers. That's certainly been my experience, but I urge you and implore on you to keep asking them. And until you've got the answers and until you're confident that you can build the trust that the community requires of you, you simply have to put a freeze on any proposed rate increase.
Thank you. Thank you, Matthew. I'm now calling on, sorry, my Penny Brown. Are you there, Penny?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
You could state your name and suburb and then please speak.
Thank you. Penny Brown, and I live in Elwood. Thank you, Mayor Crawford, and to the councillors for the opportunity to speak this evening on the proposed reduction of the quality subsidy rates for community managed childcare. I sit on the Committee of Management at Elwood Children's Centre. Speaking to you later this evening is our Centre Director, Tara Winslow. I've been sitting on the committee since 2017. I have a 5-year-old attending kinder at ECC and a 2-year-old in daycare also at ECC. I'm speaking on behalf of the Elwood Children's Centre Committee of Management, our families and our community, as we are very concerned regarding the budget proposal to reduce the amount of quality subsidy paid to community managed childcare centres from 5% to 4% of the total educator's salary. This represents a decrease of more than $10,000 to our annual budget. Elwood Children's Centre is a parent-managed community-based childcare centre located on Tennyson Street, close to St Kilda Botanical Gardens. ECC has been operating on that site for 36 years and holds a popular and respected position within the community. ECC employs 16 qualified educators and provides long daycare, including all meals, and a funded 4-year-old kindergarten to 36 children per day. Presently, 45 families and 55 children aged between 8 months and 5-year-olds call ECC their home away from home. ECC is financially sound, with all profits and fundraising efforts being 100% reinvested into our staff's professional development and our children's daily lives, including equipment, nutrition, on-set experiences, and prior to lockdown, regular excursions. All of these things have ensured we continue to be rated as exceeding the national quality standard, something we're very proud of. Being one of the most affordable centres in the area, we offer accessibility and priority access to children within the community from vulnerable and unique family situations, low income and children with special social, emotional and medical needs. ECC appreciates the continued support it receives from the City of Port Phillip. We urge the Council to continue to actively support community managed centres, and these services provide an integral service to the community at large, starting at the earliest age and at the grassroots level. We appreciate all the support Council gives us, and we understand you have limited resources and there are many demands on those resources. I just want to state that last year in 2020, community managed childcare centres remained open in the City of Port Phillip for eligible children as we were locked down, and supported families and in some situations was a lifeline and a safe space for those families.
Penny, I am going to have to get you to wrap up, please.
Thank you. We just want to urge Council to reconsider the proposed reduction to the quality subsidy in this budget, and instead to resolve to retain the current 5% of the total educator salaries. Thank you.
Thank you, Penny. David Sequeira.
Yes, hello.
Hello, David. If you could state your name and suburb and then please speak.
Sure, thank you, Mayor. My name's David Sequeira, and I'm actually from West Melbourne, but I work in South Bank, and I'm the director of the Margaret Lawrence Gallery at the Victorian College of the Arts, and I'm here to speak about the proposed conclusion of the funding of $30,000 to key arts organisations that are within the City of Port Phillip. And my message is very short. All I really want to say is to the councillors that you had a vision. You had a vision that had you invest in the arts at a time when people weren't necessarily doing that. And the arts community has not let you down. The arts community, through that investment, has thrived, taking a place not only in the City of Melbourne, not only in the state of Victoria, but nationally and internationally. And I really would urge the council to not not to fall short of that investment, to make the most of that investment. And in fact, even at a very particular moment in world history where the arts are even more crucial than they've ever been, possibly, that you consider increasing that investment. Certainly not cancelling it completely. The arts hasn't let your council down. The arts has enhanced you, it's enhanced your reputation, and I really urge you to reconsider that decision. Thank you.
Thank you, David. I now call on John Spearings.
Hello, Louise. Hello,
Hi.
councillors.
If you could state your suburbs, sir, and then please speak away.
John Spearings, Elwood, and I'm speaking on behalf of Progressive Port Phillip. I want to address the broader framework of the budget and the choices facing you. This budget has been developed within constraints, including the pandemic-induced cuts to council's income and the rate capping requirements of the state government. But there are also some self-imposed constraints. As we show in our formal submission, other councils facing the same problems are using all the financial tools available to them, raising residential rates by 1.5%, borrowing to improve assets, drawing down from reserves over time. Yet Port Phillip will not have a borrowing program, nor impose a waste management charge, and yet over the next 4 years will only draw down around $4 million net from cash reserves of $85 to $90 million. Port Phillip has a lower residential tax base than its neighbours. So council is attempting to maintain community services, fund the capital program, and meet the rising waste management costs, all from a lower residential tax base. Something has to give, and this time it's cuts to community support, childcare, arts and environmental programs. Over the past month, the voice of hundreds upon hundreds of everyday Port Phillip residents has been loud and clear. Support and build the community, don't make cuts to it. The most contentious cuts in the draft budget total around $570,000 per annum, which could be reversed by reducing the use of contractors and consultants, reducing the scope of the St Kilda Festival and its budget, not proceeding with increased high-pressure Main Street cleaning, reducing the size of the proposed surplus. Finally, we know and understand that some in the community are doing it tough. The best response is what council is doing, a targeted rates relief program, rather than an across-the-board rates freeze, which would only diminish council's capacity to provide the services that this community needs. Thank you.
Thank you, John. I now call on David Pledger. David, are you there?
I am. How are you? Thanks, everybody. I'm David Pledger. I'm from St Kilda East on the land of the Bunurong people of the Kulin Nation. Delighted to present to you. I'm talking to the training and funding issue regarding the 6 small arts organisations. TheatreWorks in particular, I just like to flag because I started working there when I was quite a young actor. Not so long after I was commissioned by the Melbourne International Festival of the Arts to do a major production, I went to TheatreWorks and asked if they would partner and produce it with me. That production formed part of a calling card that enabled me to have an extensive and ongoing career in throughout Europe and East Asia. I don't think I'm an unusual person in that regard in the city of Port Phillip. Those companies that are being slated for the rescinding of the funding, there are many artists who would also have a similar story that take the city of Port Phillip not just to the national stage, but to the international stage. And I'm eternally grateful for the work they do. The second part of what I'd like to say is basically a kind of an economic analysis. And really, if you're going to put 180K into small arts organisations, the economic benefit to the city of Port Phillip is exponential. It's about 4 times what you would get from investing in the building industry, about 6 times what you get investing in the mining industry. Not that there's much mining being done in the city of Port Phillip, but just to give you a kind of a relative idea, if you spend $1, so if you're spending 180K, you're basically going to generate 3 $750,000 worth of jobs. And that will go a long way to offsetting some of the grief that artists are suffering at this particular time. Thanks.
Thank you very much. I call upon Josh Sensel. Are you there?
Yes.
Great. If you could
Thanks,
state your
ma'am.
name and suburb and then please speak.
Okay, so Josh Sensel, St Kilda East. Good evening, councils and council officers. Thanks for the opportunity to speak. I'd like to speak today in favour of a rates freeze. There are multiple speakers on this topic, so I'll focus on the level of rates in Port Phillip, which are much higher than neighbouring councils. You might be wondering if this is really true. After all, council itself, some community groups and even local government Victoria points out that the average Port Phillip's rates bill is around $1,750, similar to Bayside and only $300 more than neighbouring Glen Eira and Stonington councils. Why is it then that groups like the Ratepayers of Port Phillip claim that rates are so high? The answer is that average rates are only a good comparison between councils if councils are made up similarly, but Port Phillip is different from neighbouring councils because we have so many more apartments. So Port Phillip collects much higher total rates than Bayside, Stonington or Glen Eira councils, despite having roughly the same number of people. So we pay more rates per person. The total amount of rates collected is not because we have better services or more roads or beaches to clean. We do have a much higher wage bill for council workers, which is a significant reason for our higher rates. The only reason average rates appear so low is because the number of apartments, So the average number of residents living per property in Port Phillip is 1.7, and that compares to between 2 and 2.5 in neighbouring councils. If we had the same average number of people per property, so if there were less properties but the same number of people, our average rates would be 30% higher than Bayside and 60% higher than Glen Eira and Stonington. So we're not comparing apples with apples when we look at average rates. So to reiterate, we have higher rates per person. And another way of saying this is that given we have so many apartments, our average rates per property should be much lower than our neighbours. So in conclusion, please vote for a rate freeze and reach out if you want more information, or you can compare rates between councils on the Ratepayer of Port Phillip website. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Josh. Greg Gibbons.
Yes, hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah, Greg, if you could state your name and suburb and then please speak.
Yeah, hi. My name's Greg Gibbons. I live in St Kilda. Good evening. Good evening, councillors. Thank you for your time. It's an enormous contribution that you make to the community. Thank you for your commitment to the City of Port Phillip. I'm talking the budget today and the proposed rate increase. I support a zero rate increase. I've extensively compared and reviewed the profile and financials of our surrounding peer councils, that of Glen Eira, Bayside and Stonington, versus the City of Port Phillip. Across these councils, the average population is 125,000. Our population is 116,000, so you would expect comparable rates and council operating expenses. Unfortunately, this is not the case. We are charged significantly more than our peers, and City of Port Phillip Council overspends considerably in comparison to those peers. Statistically versus our peer councils, our rates cost per head of population, which I think is similar to the previous talker was talking, is 28% higher than the average, while we actually occupy less than 2/3 of the area of our neighbour peer councils. So we've got less roads and infrastructure to manage. Our total expenses are 1.5 times higher than the average. Our employee costs are 1.5 times higher than the average. Our average staff salary is 38% higher, or $38,000 more than our peers. We spend $13.3 million on consultants, which is 578% more than the City of Stonington, which is the only other council to use external consultants at a level that actually needs to be reported on in the budget. The most poignant and simple comparison is expenses per head of population. City of Port Phillip operates at $1,989 per person, which is 62% higher than our peers who average $1,227. It's unreasonable that the residents of the City of Port Phillip are charged so much more than our peers, and gravely concerning that the council thinks perpetual rate increases and increases in expenditure will be funded by ratepayers. We cannot afford to pay any more. Please find savings and efficiencies, not rate increases. We've had enough. If we cut just some of the consultants' bill of $13 million a year, that would be a significant saving and would mean that we would not need to increase rates. If you approve a rate increase based on this high spending budget, you'll be abrogating your duty to the community as an elected representative. I urge you to take your responsibilities and competent financial management seriously and vote against a rate rise. Please find efficiencies, not a rate increase. That's it.
Thank you very much. I now call on James McCackey. Are you there, James?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, you're a little bit quiet. Can you get a little closer to... Yeah.
Yep, is that better?
That is better. Thank you.
Mayor, councillors, thank you for the opportunity to read this statement, which is on behalf of Bill Armstrong, who was for 13 years chair of Friends of Suai and Coralie Ling. The history of the friendship between the city of Port Phillip and Suai and Coralie Ling is well known, and the success of the friendship has been recognised both in our country and in East Timor. Let me then immediately confront what may be some concerns you may have about this program. Firstly, why should a local council and its community enter into such a relationship? As we work to make our own community a better place, there are great advantages in looking beyond our own boundaries and learning from others. When we look at the needs, concerns, and situation of others, our own community is strengthened. I am reminded of the saying, says Bill, that I was concerned that I had no shoes till I met someone who had no feet. Secondly, this is not the responsibility of our federal government to give assistance to other countries. While overseas aid is a formal responsibility of our federal government, it is extremely important that the people of Australia have the opportunity to know our neighbours as people and therefore appreciate and understand their culture and their needs. Friendship programs build a base on which more effective aid can thrive and engage with the community to whom it is directed, and that community must take responsibility for their own development. I urge you, the Council, to continue this program and to grasp the opportunities that now exist after 20 years of commitment to assist the local administration in Suai Coralie Ling to build a genuine, democratic, community-based local government. Thank you, Mayors and Councillors.
Thank you, James. Now, could I please call on Anne Wigglesworth? Anne, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Anne, please state your name and suburb and then please speak.
Anne Wigglesworth from Elwood, and I've been a ratepayer in Elwood for 20 years. And I'm proud that the city provides support to arts and entertainment and community activities. And I'm sorry to see this generous heart diminish and proposing cuts to small budgets for community engagement. But I've also been a member of Friends of Suai and the Community Reference Committee for 16 years. We provide advisory support to the Council for this community-to-community programme. If you wish to understand how it came about and what was achieved, I encourage you to read my book, Friendship for Development, Stories of a Partnership between Suai Timor-Leste and the City of Port Phillip, Australia. I wrote the book because I believe what has been achieved is quite remarkable, not as an aid programme, but as a friendship between two very different places. It's available in Grumpy Swimmer Bookshop. But through the research for the book, I know that Friends of Suai has brought great benefits to Port Phillip residents who have contributed their skills to the programme. They speak in the book of how the friendship has enriched their lives, brought joy and understanding and mutual respect in a shared cross-cultural journey. The City of Port Phillip to date has been a leader of best practice amongst the many councils that established a friendship with Timor-Leste. But the withdrawal of funding would be destabilising. It would not allow planning for a new era. It comes at a time of critical need due to the twin crises of COVID and floods in Suai. And any change in the programme must be done in a spirit of friendship. A friendship is not something to cut off without deep deliberations. As a regular user of Elwood Beach, I believe the multi-million-dollar refurbishment is unnecessary. Keep the beach in its historic and natural state and use the saved budget to support valuable community activities, including Friends of Swai, the Eco Centre, and the access to beautiful Ripponlea Gardens. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne. Pat Jensen.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and councillors. Pat Jensen, Elwood. I'm a ratepayer and have lived in Elwood for 29 years. I do accept that the 1.5% rate cap is necessary to deliver the work of council. I have supported the Friends of Swai Friendship for many years. I was a former coordinator and continue my involvement as a volunteer. Port Phillip has much more to offer this coastal district to assist in strengthening its embryonic local government. This contribution should not be underestimated, especially given East Timor is the poorest country in Southeast Asia. This young country has a young population. More than half of its people were born after the Indonesian occupation ended 21 years ago. Most of them live in rural areas and are growing up with inadequate food, poor education, substandard healthcare, and few employment opportunities. Although some, especially the brightest kids from the middle-class families, have access to the better education and jobs than their parents did, most of them do not have that chance, even though the country's future depends on them. Amazing outcomes have been achieved by the Friendship for the people in Port Phillip as well as East Timor and are well documented. It costs ratepayers less than $2 per annum per residential household to support this Friendship, with a huge impact from a relatively small amount of funding. Council must value the involvement by so many in our community. Amazingly, the highest honour, the Order of Timor-Leste, has been awarded to 3, that's right, 3 City of Port Phillip residents in recognition of significant contributions to national peace and stability. We are asking Council to continue to support the Friendship. Whilst we need to look to our own backyard, it is important to look beyond and continue this friendship and goodwill to our less privileged neighbours. Thank you.
Thanks, Pat. We're just going to go to one more person before we'll take a 10-minute break to allow for that technical change. And it's a former mayor herself, Rachel Pounding.
Good evening, Mayor and councillors. Thank you very much for the opportunity to address council this evening, and sincere thank you to all of you for your ongoing service to the community. You will have received a letter signed by several former mayors of Port Phillip asking for the funding for Friends of Swai to be confirmed in the final budget. In sending this letter, the signatories were very keen to ensure that you understood that the Friendship is in fact not an aid program, but a council-initiated arrangement which, unlike foreign aid programs, transcends politics. It is significant that every mayor since the Friendship began is a co-signatory to this letter. This reflects our understanding of the breadth of commitment to the Friendship by so many citizens of Port Phillip, and therefore our ongoing duty to support the Friendship. All levels of government are facing challenges, budget challenges as a result of COVID. When thinking about financial sustainability, however, I really urge you to consider that the Friendship has attracted countless hours of highly skilled volunteer labour and immeasurable goodwill for Port Phillip across Australia. If calculated, we would find the return on investment would far outweigh the relatively small financial contribution made by Council to this Friendship. The Friendship has the potential to unite elected councils and the Port Phillip community for years to come. And so I also urge you to consider the value of this, both in financial terms and reputational benefit to Council. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rachel. Okay, so everyone, we're going to take a 10-minute break, which will allow for getting the next round of speakers ready. So everyone will be back at, well, basically 8 o'clock. Thanks everyone for coming back for the next stage of the hearing of submissions to our budget and council plan. So now I will call on Jennifer Hughes. If you could state your name and suburb and then please speak.
Good evening, Jen Hughes, St Kilda. I'm a ratepayer for 22 years. I'm here to ask you to please keep your commitment to fund the Friends of SWI, because we're so close to achieving the original goal to assist Covalima to develop democratic local government who can then continue the work. Please keep in mind it means jobs, food and education, where at this stage nothing will take its place. The Friends of SWI is a legacy to be proud of. This program is changing lives far less privileged than our own. Thanks to numerous volunteers from Port Phillip, many smart young people in Covalima have developed an understanding of what democracy means through lived experience, with council support of only one part-time worker. Our community is contributing positively to the sphere of influence so needed in our global neighbourhood. Thanks to this initiative, young people are learning they can get some control over their lives. Dino had resorted to drinking with his friends and giving up on trying to get work until he got a job with the Covalima Community Centre, where he runs the scholarship program. Honorio was only 9 years old when he received a snake bite that led to his leg amputation. He was missing school because he had to hop on one leg 2 kilometres to school. With 3 scholarships, he's made it to university and found a job in disability advocacy. Dino and Honorio are both paying for their siblings' education and putting food on the table. Where I was cynical in 2000 when this began, I'm now proud. We have the opportunity to show others what miracles can look like when local government listen to and work with passionate people in their communities, with only a tiny local government budget commitment that produces a multiplier effect in grants, in-kind work and donations for SWI, as well as many cultural and educational activities in Port Phillip. This is about historical justice too. I don't need to tell you about that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jen. I'm now calling on Megs Alston to, if you could state your name and suburb, please.
Megs Alston, South Melbourne. Thank you, Mayor and councillors. And at the outset, I want to say I support the 1.5% rate increase for the delivery of council services. The council's friendship program with Covalima is held in very high regard by a range of people and organisations outside the city of Port Phillip, including in East Timor. Strong endorsements for continued support have been sent to council from many, including the previous Prime Minister and President of East Timor, Jose Ramos Horta, former Ambassador to Australia, Abel Gutierrez, and the former First Lady, Kirsty Sword Guzmao, all of whom are very familiar with the work and reputation of the friendship with Port Phillip and recognise its vital contribution. Council's grant enables the continued operation of the community centre in SWI, and while donors may be found for its various programs, the core grant ensures there is a base from which programs are managed and community meetings held, most important for active participation in democratic local government. The friendship agreement was renewed for 10 years only last year, and the link between the two municipalities is coming into real focus now that East Timor's national government has finally devolved local government control, meaning the Covalima district has real budgetary and management responsibility for the first time and is eager to learn about our experience. This experience can't be replicated by other tiers of government in Australia, and I respectfully argue that it is entirely appropriate for all tiers of government to be involved in programs in our region. It would be a mistake to think that after 21 years, all is completed and the job is done. On behalf of the Friendship Community Reference Committee, I ask Council to continue to work with our neighbour, expressing its friendship in actions, not just words. We here in Port Phillip do have the capacity to support this program. Please continue its funding, and we look forward to talking with Council about its future. Thank you.
Thanks, Megs. I now call on Jane Crouch.
Good evening.
Jane, if you could state your name and suburb first and then please speak.
So Jane Crouch, I live in Ripponlea and I've been a local ratepayer for 42 years. In the early noughties, I was working developing sustainable tourism operations in Asia with the global tour operator Intrepid Travel. I was absolutely delighted that my council was thinking globally and acting locally for the development of the Friends of Swai. So when I began developing a 15-day tour to Timor, it was great to be able to consult with the City of Port Phillip's coordinator and their Timorese counterpart. Their assistance and their vision led to me including a 2-night stay in Swai in the itinerary. If it wasn't for their support, the itinerary is unlikely to have ventured to the less accessible south coast of Timor-Leste. The visits with local activities coordinated by the staff of the community centre brought friendship, cross-cultural understanding and economic benefits to the local community, and a very rich and rewarding experience for the travellers. The trips took hundreds of travellers to the region, and it influenced many to become active in supporting Timor-Leste from home through friendship groups like this one. The City of Port Phillip was amongst the first councils to formally establish friendship agreements with regions of Timor-Leste, and the success and effectiveness of the partnership has been a role model for councils across Australia. I know, for example, that the City of Stonington Group, the Friends of Bajwa, use lessons learnt from the City of Port Phillip. There are now more than 30 registered Australia Timor-Leste friendship groups across Australia, with 18 linked to Victorian councils. On a personal note, from my involvement with Friends of Swai Covalima, I've made many close, like-minded friends. I find that they're all inevitably very community-minded and inclusive, and they've influenced me to participate in other local grassroots activities, particularly those with a cross-cultural, environmental or arts focus. I urge you to please continue to fund the Friends of Swai Covalima. Thank you.
Thanks, Jane. I now call on Campbell Spence. If you could please state your name and suburb. Oh, sorry about that. And then please speak for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Louise. I'm Campbell Spence, a resident of Middle Park since 1982, and I'm representing the ratepayers of Port Phillip tonight. There is something wrong with ratepayers do not feel they are part of our community, a community which is divided by those seeking handouts and those who want affordable rates. Some councillors see us as cash cows, but you need to do something for ratepayers when we're paying some of the highest rates in Victoria and we're underserviced. We don't have green waste bins, food waste bins or free parking permits. Now you want to increase residential property rates revenue by 4.5% when our rates are already excessive and people are experiencing COVID hardships. You have an opportunity to unite our divided community, but it means that you must make some difficult decisions, and that takes leadership. It's your choice whether you want to find a solution to unite or divide our community, but how can this challenging task be achieved? Council should deliver a rates freeze by finding less than $2 million of efficiencies, which is less than 1% of budget expenditure. Last year, Council found $7 million of efficiencies when 65 staff positions were not filled or made redundant with no reduction in Council services. How many positions are currently vacant and what cost savings could be achieved if you were not to fill those positions? What efficiencies could you find if you didn't refill those positions? So Council should deliver a rates freeze by finding efficiencies by reducing excessively long reports that nobody reads and nobody wants. Your annual report is 2 or 3 times longer than Telstra's or CSL's or the Commonwealth Bank. You could negotiate more favourable contracts with suppliers and get council officers to do the work that's outsourced to consultants. It is your responsibility as councillors to hold the CEO and his officers accountable to sensible spending and delivering efficiencies. Do you just accept everything the council officers put in front of you? Have you seen the Canberra Senate Estimates Committee meetings? That is the standard that bureaucrats need to be held. Your role as councillors is to scrutinise the budget, find cost savings and efficiencies, and finally, when you vote for the budget, you have a choice to do something for everyone in our community or just those who want handouts. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. I now call on Linda Davison. Linda, if you could state your name and suburb and then please speak.
Oh, hi. Yes, I'm Linda Davison. I'm the coordinator at Clarendon Children's Centre. I have been there for 33 years in South Melbourne. And I did want to just talk to councillors about the proposal to reduce the quality subsidy for community managed childcare centres from 5% to 4% of total educator salaries. I do want to acknowledge that the City of Port Phillip has had a long and proud history, and before Port Phillip, the various cities of South Melbourne, Port Melbourne and St Kilda have had a long and proud history of supporting families with young children. And I think we can't underestimate the value to the community of our high quality early childhood education and care services. They're a source of pride in the community, and I think also a drawcard for potential new residents. When I was reading the notes that accompanied the proposal to reduce the quality subsidy amount, I was shocked with the idea that was suggested that the quality subsidy had achieved its purpose. And I think that betrays a lack of understanding of how quality is connected to the educators who provide the education and care for children. So there's a lot of research evidence to show that quality is very much connected to educators. So the numbers of educators in terms of ratios of educators to children, the qualifications of educators, the resources and the ongoing professional development that's provided to educators. And the quality subsidy, as it is currently conceived, does recognise the significance of the influence of educators on quality of care. I think it's really important to understand that providing quality early education and care is an ongoing challenge. It's not a set and forget. So to say that a subsidy like this has achieved its purpose really kind of misses the point. I think that it's important that councillors understand that a reduction of quality subsidy will have a real impact on service incomes and consequently on childcare fees for families.
So Linda, I will have to ask you to wrap up if you may.
Absolutely. Really, I just want to say I think council should reconsider this cost cutting. There are other ways of achieving the cuts or the savings that are required to maintain a rate levy. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Linda. I now call upon Catriona Sinclair. Are you there, Catriona?
Yes.
Could you state your name and suburb and then please speak?
Katrina Sinclair, St Kilda, and I'm speaking on behalf of the neighbourhood around Christchurch, St Kilda in North Ackland Street, and we're asking for a small allocation of funds to reinstate the children's playground on church land. And to explain the background, the land has been open to the community for 50 years as part of the parish's long-term welcoming policy. And since the mid-80s, council leased this land, added a playground and formed a much-loved pocket park, effectively a community hub. Then 2 years ago, the Anglican Diocese of Melbourne, as landowners, terminated the lease so they could commercialise the land in partnership with a developer and create a 118-place childcare business with a 25-space car park. The community was devastated for many reasons, including environmental destruction and tree removal. A bit reminiscent of the old Joni Mitchell song, Pave Paradise and Put Up a Parking Lot. And the community galvanised to form an action group. And to cut a long story short, the proposal was rejected by the Heritage Council of Victoria after a formal hearing in which we participated. Church Square, St Kilda is, after all, of state-level heritage significance. But now that the proposal's out of the picture, it's such a shame that the playground is no longer there. COVID has made us even more keenly aware of the importance of open space and connection with others for mental health. The local parish has indicated they would favour the re-establishment of a small playground for healing and reconnection with the community. Locals are keen to assist in caring and beautifying the gardens. It's not an expensive project. One swing and a toddler climbing frame would help to reunite residents, parishioners, young and old. It's also in keeping with Council's public space strategy, emphasising partnerships in view of the high cost of land. So we ask Council to reflect on this small investment, which generates a valuable community dividend. Truly a win-win for everyone. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much. I call on Vivian Corcoran. Vivian, if you could state your name and then state your suburb and then please speak.
Thank you. My name is Vivian Corcoran. I live in Elwood and I'm speaking on behalf of the City of Port Phillip Arts and Soul Advisory Panel. Mayor and councillors, thank you very much for your work, your community consultation and the chance to speak. I'm asking today for a creative industries plan to continue to be included in the council's plan. Creative industries are 35% of the economy of Port Phillip. They provide 12,500 direct and 14,000 indirect jobs. The sector is the second largest employer in the city and we have the highest concentration of creative industries employment in Victoria. We are home to some of the state's major cultural assets in the Palais, the National Theatre, Gasworks and so on. In addition to the economic benefits, creative industries provide demonstrable health and wellbeing benefits through participation in arts and cultural programs. This improves social relationships, leads to pro-social behaviour, increases tolerance and builds resilience. They make Port Phillip a better place to live. The City of Port Phillip Council had a plan to ensure creative industries thrive here and were not lost to other local government areas. This plan needs to be reinstated and should include the Council's role in facilitating and supporting creative industries, events and festivals that celebrate local culture and creativity, connect residents to one another and drive economic benefit for local traders in our community, the development of music precincts to keep and grow live music in Port Phillip, predictable funding for key arts organisations that create and develop work for and with local artists and attract important local audiences, action on vacant spaces to get them revitalised and so they can be used for creative industries, and offering emerging and local artists from diverse backgrounds assistance in terms of funding and spaces to create and produce in. This is not all about money. What we've seen during lockdown is the capacity of people to create something from nothing. Council is in a unique position to offer advice, partnership and logistics support to develop and grow the creative industries that have long been the economic heartbeat and the soul of the Port Phillip community. This cannot happen without a creative industries plan. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I now call upon Phillip Huizenrode.
Shake out, people.
Hello. I hope you can state your name and suburb. And then please speak. Phillip, are you there?
Mayor, if you'd like to move on to the next caller. Thanks.
We lost him. Okay, I'm calling on Charlie Beckley. Charlie, are you there?
Yes.
Yes,
Thank
Charlie.
you, Mayor and councillors. My name's Charlie Beckley. I actually live in Castlemaine. I work in South Melbourne. I'm the CEO of Southport Community Housing Group. Southport is a community managed organisation that's operated in the city of Port Phillip for 38 years. We have a long and proud history of constructively working with the council to create and deliver affordable housing options and support to marginalised singles. We commend the council for highlighting the significant economic challenges that will disproportionately impact vulnerable groups as a result of the global pandemic we're all fighting. These are indeed challenging times. As the draft 10-year plan highlights, Port Phillip is some of the most expensive housing in Victoria, and less than 1% of private rental housing is considered affordable to low-income households. The council also has the 5th highest rate of people experiencing homelessness in Victoria. We welcome and support council's aim to advocate to the Victorian government for a number of measures that would increase social housing and support for these groups. These include introduction of inclusionary zoning and the strengthening of voluntary housing agreements in the planning system, advocating for new social housing and renewal of existing sites, and funding of services and supported housing that meets the needs of people with complex mental health needs. We would also add Fisherman's Bend as a significant opportunity for affordable and social housing. We look forward to working with the new council towards these shared aims. We are disappointed that council is seeking to cut a range of small but important community services for underrepresented groups. These cuts appear to achieve modest savings and impact those highlighted as most needing greater support over the next 10 years. We're also concerned that there's a lack of detail regarding the future of the council's housing affordability strategy in the 10-year plan. And the critical question we'd ask council to consider is, how does the draft budget and 10-year plan serve those most vulnerable in our community? As we all do our best to respond to this public health crisis, the true indicator council should be seeking to measure is how well supported these groups will be over the next 10 years. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Charlie. I now call on David Brand, a former councillor, twice over 2 terms. David, are you with us? No? Oh, we might try Lauren O'Dwyer. Are you there, Lauren? Are we having a technical issue, team?
I'm here.
Oh, you're here, Lauren.
I'm here, just waiting to be unmuted.
Ah, great. Lauren, if you could state your name and suburb and please speak to your to what you on your submission.
Thank you, Mayor Crawford. I'm Lauren O'Dwyer. I'm the chair of Theatre Works St Kilda, but I live in Fairfield. I am the #1 fan of Radio Mexico, Associate Director of Strategy and Advocacy at Arts Centre Melbourne, and board member at the one-time St Kilda institution PBS FM, but I'm also the chair of Theatre Works. I'm here to advocate for the reinstatement of multi-year funding for our 6 arts organisations and share some info on Theatre Works' contribution to the local economy. After being one of the first industries to offer our talents to efforts around fundraisers for bushfire recovery last year, performing arts was then decimated by the impact of the pandemic. Again, we rallied to provide much required distraction and meeting to our neighbours. We put entertainment on screens, music on radios and books in hands. This in turn provided community connections in a time of isolation, increasing health outcomes and creating new revenue streams for artists. Pre-COVID, the creative industries fuelled over 220,000 full-time jobs, representing 8% of Victoria's employment sector and attracting $1 billion a year in cultural tourism. When someone comes to Theatre Works, they don't just come to a show and leave again. They come to the icon that is St Kilda, grabbing a bite to eat first. After the show, they take their friends to a local pub or bar, again pouring, literally, dollars into our local community. The audience spend in our venue in 2019 was $470,000, and our year-to-date audience spend is close to $238,000. This revenue is just for Theatre Works. I can't imagine what it would be if you added up the additional dollars people like me contribute to our local eateries. Theatre Works is an icon, having survived over 40 years, and the future plans that we had for our organisation are inspiring. In addition to our creative development programs, we had plans to increase our engagement with the local community, further contributing to St Kilda's eclectic creative fabric. We know that we play a major role in the City of Port Phillip community and are why people want to live here. Residential engagement in the creative industries is a whopping 94%. People live and visit here because it is one of the most creative electorates in the country, bringing in more money than it costs. For every $1,000 invested, the total impact is 1.5 jobs created and a $4,200 boost to the local economy. However, our activities are next to impossible without confirmed multi-year funding. Multi-year funding means we can put strategic plans in place. We can provide longer-term employment for our creatives, and we can commit to bringing new works to the venue before they get snapped up by rival councils. These 6 organisations play a central role in the creative and cultural fabric of this council, and it would be a massive loss for this funding not to be reinstated to your final budget. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lauren. I'm going to go back to David Brand. Are you there, David? David, you're on mute. No? All right, we'll try again and come back to David in a second. Antonia Syme is going to have her submission read out by Lisa Newcomb. So Lisa, are you there?
Yes, I am. Thank you, Mayor and councillors. My name's Lisa Newcomb. I'm a resident of Albert Park and I'm the Deputy Chair of the Australian Tapestry Workshop. I'd like to thank the City of Port Phillip for granting the Australian Tapestry Workshop and the 5 other key arts organisations $30,000 per annum for the last 3 years. This has been visionary funding, which has been extremely helpful in supporting creative projects and sharing these with the residents of the City of Port Phillip through tours, workshops, talks, performances, classes and exhibitions. It has enabled us to participate in renowned cultural events such as the Asia Theatre of Performing Arts, Melbourne Fashion Week and Open House Melbourne, to name but a few. It has also been very important for us as a workshop to be recognised as a valuable and important part of the City of Port Phillip, and that our contribution to making the city an exciting place to live and work is valued. We have been proudly representing the City of Port Phillip by creating and presenting world-class work nationally and internationally made right here in Port Phillip for many years now. Our vibrant public programs provide work, nurture talents and skills across a wide demographic from the very young to older audiences and participants, and contribute to the mental health and wellbeing of local residents, foster community spirit and promote innovation and creative thinking. This is particularly important in these challenging COVID times. Ongoing funding helps our organisational sustainability, enabling us to leverage funds to attract other supporters and to keep benefiting the community in the City of Port Phillip and beyond. We strongly urge you to reinstate the $30,000 per annum triennial funding for our cultural institutions, which play such a vital part in the community and the dynamic national arts landscape more broadly. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I call on Nicole Bayer. Are you there, Nicole?
Yes, I'm here.
Nicole, if you could state your name and suburb and then please continue.
Nicole Bayer, Elwood resident and ratepayer for 28 years. I'm here to urge you to fix the oversight in the draft budget which left out the annual funding to 6 local arts organisations. I'm also the CEO of Theatre Network Australia. We're a national peak body for the performing arts. Very lucky to have been based in this locality for 10 years in Bank Street.
I found a problem. There's a connection on my speakers which have on my
Sorry, Nicole, can I just hold you there for there? David
Yes.
Brand, we can now hear you.
Okay.
David, can you put yourself on mute? Okay, Nicole, if you could continue, please. Sorry about that.
That's fine. So yes, I'm the CEO of Theatre Network Australia, a national peak body for the performing arts, lucky to have been based in this locality for 10 years in Bank Street, South Melbourne. While I see myself as a patron and fan of the arts organisations, I want to use my breadth of knowledge of the Australian art scene to highlight the incredibly rich cultural position that the City of Port Phillip occupies nationally. So firstly, the employees and workers. Data from the ABS has been filtered by federal electorate by the Australia Council for the Arts. As you all know, the City of Port Phillip is just a little smaller than Macnamara, so this shows how the City of Port Phillip compares nationally. Macnamara has one of the highest levels of employment in cultural and creative occupations in Australia, over 10,000 people. This is 11% of the total employed electorate workforce, and the national average is 4.2%. And I will say those again, it's 11% of the total employed electorate workforce, and the national average is 4.2%. This is on a par with the major capital cities. Melbourne is 12.3 and Sydney is 12.8, and it's well above the other capitals. Adelaide is 5.2, Brisbane 7.5, Perth 6.6%. So this tells the story of a locality driven by creativity. How many people engage with arts and culture? As Lorna Dwyer just noted, 94% of people in the electorate aged 15 and over attend cultural venues or events. What she didn't say is this is the highest in the country. This is the highest electorate in the country. The only other one that is the same level of engagement is Brisbane. Melbourne engagement is 88%, Sydney 90%, Adelaide, which is the festival city, is 87%. What we have here in the City of Port Phillip is not an economically strong, desirable, diverse beachside community which happens to be creative. It is those things because it is creative, and we are the envy of the whole country. It is inconceivable that a council would stop investing in some of their key cultural assets, which make the area one of the most desirable and creative councils in the country. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nicole, and apologies. I'm going to try David Brand again.
Are we here?
Oh my goodness, David!
I'm lucky. Oh, I feel like a complete outcast.
No, David.
No.
As Councillor Bond just put in the chat, it makes us feel like you never left. So welcome.
That's, how kind, how kind. Thank you. And thank you, councillors, all for being there and for providing this platform. And I hope you've read my written submission, which I so kindly thrust upon you. It explains why, even in this budget crisis, we should continue to fund the arts, logically at even a higher level. Long term, we need to protect our massive but now vulnerable cultural and economic advantage as home of the arts, as we've just heard. We've seen how instantly our reputation as that can be smashed by just one newspaper article. Short term, we need to see our budgeting for the arts not as an expendable indulgence, but as the perfect pipeline for emergency rescue and recovery funding that we need to be providing now. In both those timeframes for the arts, we need to lead, not stand back. I want to make specific mention of the tiny Arts Acquisition Fund as a case in point, standing maybe for many other larger programs as well. Its future funding appears to have been surreptitiously slashed in half. It was not really announced in the budget. Apart from semi-vandalising something so peculiarly special to this city, it is a totally counterproductive move in the current economic climate. Its biennial program is, in fact, also a brilliantly efficient form of merit-based rescue and recovery funding. And at the same time, it also protects and grows a uniquely important and precious asset, funding that does not deplete our coffers, but measurably grows the city's cultural and economic capital. When fully understood, this is a win-win-win opportunity. The amounts involved are minuscule, but the damage done by saving on them will be magnified out of all proportion. I hope this example of the Arts Acquisition Fund stands as a conceptual model for all our deliberations on funding for the arts and the shaping of our city's budget in its second year of the current COVID crisis. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David. I now call on Sharon Meredith. Are you there, Sharon?
Yes, I am.
Could you please state your name and suburb and then please speak?
My name is Sharon. I live in St Kilda and I'm speaking on the library plans.
Please go ahead.
Okay. Australia has good public libraries. Let us all do better. Inspirational and aspirational intentions backed by a plan with funding, servants and safety of all people in the city of Port Phillip. I'm asking the council to be bold, be thoughtful, be collaborative and forward-thinking. I suggest the introduction of late fines for overdue articles to show willingness to generate funds. Inclusion of social services in areas of need of a one-stop shop in addition to existing council services. Do continue to rent out public spaces at a reasonable fee, engendering goodwill and a service available to all. Do not offer a 24-hour library. It is potentially dangerous, horrendously expensive, and would be seen as antagonistic to residents by the residents. To engage in active partnership with state government instrumentalities such as educational institutions. A good start is the University of Melbourne, planned faculties of engineering and architecture, and the integrated transport plan of 2017. I would think to build a brand new library at Fisherman's Bend with an anticipated population of 26,000 by 2025, starting a population growth up to 76,000 by 2030. Send out tenders, run a competition for a beautiful, practical library. Take into account residents and day denizens, workers of the city of Port Phillip. For example, by 2032, the University of Melbourne anticipates a 10,000 people population of their campus in Fisherman's Bend. Many workers use a library which is close to work. Drop in, so to speak. Plan for accommodating the new suburb starting classes to upgrade the skills of many people, including potential students applying to educational institutions such as the University of Melbourne, with pre-application of prospective students with catch-up units of study. Interview techniques, perhaps an interview clothing rental service. Build on what you have in the city. Build a large library of many rooms, large theatres for films, presentations of tenders, school performances and artistic performances. a suite of smaller rooms and many dedicated study corrals for individual study, and an auditorium for large school performances and for safe gathering during emergencies. The end.
Thank you very much, Sharon. I appreciate it. Now moving on to Phillip Adams. Phillip, are you with us?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Please
Yeah.
state your name, sir, and suburb, and continue.
Good evening, councillors and mayor. I'm Phillip Adams, Director of Ballet Lab at Temperance Hall, and I'm a resident of South Melbourne. I have been an artist and a choreographer all of my working life. I was fortunate enough 5 years ago to take occupancy of the South Melbourne Temperance Hall, which is a building of historical significance contributing to the cultural life of Emerald Hill for 150 years. In 2016, I transformed the Temperance Hall with the backing and willingness of a loyal arts community to become a cultural hub for artists and community of diverse as the word itself can muster. Then receiving the $30,000 a year triennial funding set the wheels in motion for my work and I guess what would you call an invitation to a stampede of artists from all walks of life in the city of Port Phillip and beyond to celebrate in a new vision and shape the cultural ecology of the city of Port Phillip. And this includes a promise to voices of minority artists, of disability and LGBTQI communities. Ours is a good news story, councillors, thanks to receiving the triennial funding that supported this legacy building moment for my life as an artist. The triennial funding has been the backbone of financial stability for the 6 funded arts organisations' cultural growth in the city of Port Phillip. More so, it has been a generative in the cultivation of next generation cultural leaders in our community and a provisional for next generation of artists that require spaces like ours to celebrate their works and inspire in them leadership quality. We are immensely proud to fly the City of Port Phillip flag when drawing our audiences to Midsummer, Fringe, Asiatopa, Melbourne Film Festival, Seniors Festival, Open House Melbourne, Thrive Festival, just to name a few, which equates to monetary investment back into local businesses. In conclusion, what we have achieved as a cohort of 6 arts organisations in the city of Port Phillip with triennial funding is golden. Especially recognition and opportunity for First Nations artists, to which my venue, Temperance Hall, was built on the land of the Boonwurrung people, who are the custodians of the land here. It is so vital. To see this funding cease, councillors, right now, at this pivotal moment, reduces Port Phillip to becoming a lesser cultural society. As an artist, I'm here to champion councillors tonight to see the very heart of the reason why renewal of triennial program be a priority in the budget to ensure the cultural prosperity and the livelihood of City of Port Phillip to thrive for many years to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Phillip. Carmel Shute, are you there to speak?
I am. Thank you, Louise. I'm Carmel Shute. I live in Balaclava and I've been a member of the City of Port Phillip and before that in Kilda for 36 years. So, councillors, thank you so much for agreeing to reinstate the funding for the Friends of Sawai. But I'm appealing to you not to phase it out, to make it ongoing. So 21 years ago, the friendship broke new ground because it wasn't just about aid or a traditional city-city relationship, but rather a community-community relationship, which has involved a large number of residents and community institutions and organisations such as schools, Rotary, Veg Out, the Army Unit up, in Chapel Street, and numerous businesses. So City of Port Phillip citizens have volunteered their own time and money to go to Sawai, teach English, install solar panels, and assist in the creation of the high school library and many other things. Of course, it's been a long history. 2 of the Balibo 5 journalists killed by the Indonesians in 1975 came from Port Phillip, Greg Shackleton and Tony Stewart. Greg's widow, Shirley, has led a campaign ever since for the perpetrators to be brought to justice. Tony's brother, Paulie Stewart, a singer-songwriter from the Painters and Dockers band, has also campaigned for East Timorese and notably set up the Billy All Stars, which performed at the opening of Friends of Hawaii, or the launch, and also then at the independence celebrations a couple of years later. So 21 years later, it seems to me it's not time to stop supporting this special relationship. Timor-Leste has just experienced more devastations from massive floods and is facing the deadly spread of the COVID. We're a really wealthy community, and the amount of money involved in continuing this special relationship with Hawaii is minuscule. In these terrible times, our hands should be going out, not withdrawing. I want to be part of a community that has a big heart, not one that's fixated on the lowest bottom line. And I want a council I can continue to be proud of. Thank you.
Thank you, Carmel. Now calling on April Seymour. April, you're not new to this. Are you with us?
I am. Good evening. I'm April Seymour from East St Kilda. I'm speaking tonight as Executive Officer of the Eco Centre in St Kilda. Thank you for Council's partnership. The Eco Centre delivers $10 impact for every $1 invested by Council, and we'll continue to model an inclusive, livable, sustainable, and vibrant community through our hub. Mitigating climate risk is a legal obligation of local government, and healthy environments underpin the economy and the character of Port Phillip. Further, the new EPA Act compels councils to proactively prevent harm to human and environmental health. So our submission outlines 14 specific ideas for uniting council, community, and industry action to respond to the climate emergency and protect local nature and well-being. Tonight, I note our request not to cut funding for the Eco Centre's garden group, Puffin. Under Community Impact and Housing, Council engages us to run weekly gardening activities and community lunches with a professional health and garden coordinator. Council covers 50% of costs. We match this with grants and plant sales. There are 600 participations and 3,000 volunteer hours annually, and participants are retired professionals, new migrants, job seekers, social housing residents, healthcare referrals, and they represent a mix of ages, physical abilities, and at least 7 languages. Between 25 to 50% are experiencing formally disclosed socioeconomic disadvantage. Council identifies social inclusion is a determinant of health, and 100% of our gardeners report meeting new friends. 76% report increased happiness. One wrote, and this is not unusual feedback, quote, "It seems almost silly that something as simple as joining a gardening group can make such a positive impact where many overpriced drugs have failed me. I want to get out of bed every day now. I want to live." The garden team has prepared for multi-site planting to continue, including through our upcoming redevelopment period. We adapted through COVID, we'll adapt again. Community-led organizations provide a nimble and cost-effective contribution to the resilience and recovery of our city. Councillors, in your plan, in your budget, don't reduce, but leverage community partnerships. Thank you.
Thank you, April. Joanne Slatter, are you with us? Joanne? If not, we might move on to Sue Higgins. Sue, are you with us?
Absolutely.
Oh, Sue, we need your energy right about now.
Oh my lordy Lord, hallelujah, thank you so much. Okay. Oh, we've been sitting here for hours.
I know, I'm sorry.
We are excited. Goodness me, nearly fell off the chair. All right, okay. So 2 minutes, here we go. So good evening, Mayor and councillors. And firstly, thank you for listening to our presentation. My name is Sue Higgins. I'm the principal of St Kilda Primary School, and with me is Peter Wetzel, who is our school council president. And our proposal for council is to fund the conversion of Dickens Street extension from the cul-de-sac car parking area it currently is to a multi-purpose community space. The short length of Dickens Street that sits between our school and Holy Trinity Church offers great potential beyond its current form. Basically, it is an underutilised piece of land. At the moment, it's providing 21 parking spaces, and has a beautiful dense tree canopy which invites the community to use the shade for recreational activities. So our proposal to council is to reduce the number of car parks to 11, retaining, of course, the access to the church on-site car parking, and for the turning circle to be moved east to enable the last 30 minutes of the cul-de-sac to become a car-free space for the community to gather and enjoy.
And further to our arguments on this, we note that the City of Port Phillip has already identified our vision as being a noteworthy one, having run their own community play street in March to allow the community to reimagine the street as a public space, encouraging neighbours to connect and play. In a similar light, St Kilda Primary School the City of Port Phillip funded St Kilda Primary School to close the very same dead end of the street to host our own play streets extravaganza. Both events were hugely successful and embraced by the community. Rather than creating moments in time, council can provide our community with endless time to enjoy the space. We've had the opportunity to develop a great local space that could be inviting and inclusive for all in an area with limited access to public spaces. The submission for the conversions of Dickens Street Extension is a result of consultation with adjoining community services and councillors over years and seeks to improve the public realm for all locals to use and enjoy. The permanent closure of the dead end of the street will inject life into the hearts and furthermore belief into the minds of the City of Port Phillip residents that the City of Port Phillip is moving in the right direction for its people, the young who love to play and the not so young who appreciate a very progressive council.
Thank you very, very much. And we hope you have loved what you've heard. And we hope that this is going to be a driving force in the next budget.
Thank you very much, Sue and Peter. I appreciate it. It's a lot to live up to, whoever's coming next on the list. We've got Brenda Forbath.
Thank you, Mayor and councillors, and thank you for the opportunity to speak to you. My name is Brenda Forbath and I live in Elwood. I'm speaking tonight on behalf of the Community Alliance of Port Phillip, and I'm speaking to its formal submission on the 2021-22 budget. I will speak on the section of our submission that about our concerns relating to the reduction in council's quality subsidy to community managed childcare centres and the increase in fees for parents using council run centres. The reduction in the quality subsidy from 5% to 4% of total wage costs for educators and training expenses will not only cause fee increases, but will impact on the ongoing capacity of centres to engage and retain the most highly qualified and experienced staff and provide professional development. The quality subsidy is also a key component in all centres' ability to improve child-to-staff ratios and to provide teaching resources. These factors impact very significantly on the quality of the educational experience of preschool children, particularly children who come from disadvantaged backgrounds. Now, the argument put forward in the budget papers that the quality subsidy has already achieved its purpose and therefore a reduction will not impact on service quality is clearly and utterly illogical. Wages of the highly qualified and experienced staff still need to be paid, and professional development is not a static thing, it's an ongoing thing. Community managed centres will be forced to raise their fees to make up the shortfall in a time of low wage growth and job losses due to the COVID pandemic. And parents using council-run centres will face a 2.6% increase in their fees as well. Extra financial pressure on families at this time is utterly unacceptable, and council should reverse both of these decisions. Expenditure in this area should be a high priority for the well-being of our community. Thank you, councillors.
Thank you, Brenda. I have to say I'm so impressed with everyone keeping to time. Thank you very much, everyone. I now call on Rhonda Small.
Thank you, Mayor and Councillors. My name's Rhonda Small. I live in St Kilda, and I'm a supporter of the utterly reasonable 1.5% rate rise. But I will talk now to the Community Alliance of Port Phillip submissions housing section. The message from the Mayor introducing the draft council plan and budget notes that we are at a key moment in our city's history. Indeed, we are, especially in relation to social and affordable housing and homelessness. Not just because of the considerable challenges we face, but also because of the significant opportunity that is now on offer to address the challenges. The question not answered in the draft council plan is whether or not the City of Port Phillip has a strategy to make the best of this opportunity. The challenges are clear. Less than 1% of private rental housing in the city is currently affordable for low-income households, and over 1,000 people are known to be homeless. 49% of our residents are renting, 5% in public and community housing, and many of the 44% in private rentals experience rental stress, even more so since the pandemic hit. On the other hand, there is a historical opportunity here. The Victorian government's $5.3 billion big housing build program is calling for partnerships with local government and community housing providers to participate in ambitious programs of social housing development. The City of Port Phillip has been a local government leader, investing in social housing well before many other councils. So the city is in a good position to make the most of partnering with the state government. We also have strong and active community housing providers in our city. What CAP would like to see in the final council plan and forward budget projections is a major commitment to use some of the city's considerable property and cash reserves to mount a serious proposal in partnership with our community housing providers for matched or additional funding from the state government to enable appropriate property purchases for redevelopment of social housing in Port Phillip. A clearly articulated strategy incorporated in the final plan would enable officers to enter into financially supported discussions with the state government at the earliest opportunity, and so maximise the possibility of Port Phillip benefiting from big housing build support. Councillors, please do not let this historic opportunity go to waste. Thank you.
Thank you, Rhonda. I call on Simon Cosma.
Thank you, councillors. Simon Cosma, St Kilda. I speak this evening in support of the CAP submission on the budget and plan. According to Transport Victoria data, increasing numbers of Port Phillip residents leave home each day and don't take the car. For short trips, 68% of us do just that. Residents take to our streets seeking safe spaces provided by council for activity and active transport. Since the pandemic, Vic Roads records much higher bike volumes on our recreational paths across the city. Without more protected on-road paths, our cycling and walking paths will continue to congest. In the Move, Connect, Live integrated transport strategy, Council proposes to complete 15 safer cycling corridors by 2027-28. 3 are entirely state funded with 1 completed, and only 3 are included in this council budget. 2 of these are included because of co-funding arrangements. So to meet council's own target, another 9 cycling corridors listed need to be completed in the next 5 budgets. The honest way to meet the current demand for safe walking and cycling space is to build the infrastructure today and not defer responsibility. Firstly, we asked council to increase the initial budget and bring forward the completion date of the Inkerman Street bike path. Save money on the cost of protracting it, have it done before the state government's St Kilda Road bike lanes are finished in 2026, to which this path will connect. And secondly, we asked council to move forward on the Ripon Lee to Windsor corridor, a vital pathway across the city, linking networks in Glen Eira and Stonington. Connect the villages and parks of Green Space for East St Kilda, Balaclava and Ripon Lee, including the once free gardens. We ask council to take these 2 extra steps forward. Port Phillip has 59 kilometres of bike paths. This number remains unchanged over many years, yet City of Melbourne last month surpassed its previous claim of 135 kilometres. I commend the CAP submission to you for your consideration.
Thank you, Simon. I call on Anne Byrne.
Thank you, Mayor, for the opportunity to speak to you this evening.
My remarks will cover this CAP submission on arts funding. I'm also a supporter of the rate rise. We understand that the economic outfall from the COVID-19 pandemic has put pressure on the budget, and this crisis demands a rescue and recovery response. It is CAP's view that one of the recovery responses should focus on increasing funding to the arts, not by decreasing it. The arts are important to our city. We should not trade off our generosity, expertise and leadership in supporting creative industries and the arts. It is to our economic and cultural advantage to rescue and sustain the creative industries. The arts sectors disproportionately depend on this city as their home and disproportionately contribute to its economic and cultural well-being. The arts are equivalent to fresh air for our mental health in these difficult times. CAP is concerned about an apparent trend away from established multi-year funding relationships with current partners towards competitive tendering on an annual basis. This process zaps the energy and enthusiasm of arts organisations and severely depletes their capacities to perform, as they need to spend hours on administrative compliance. For our medium-sized arts organisations, this is undoubtedly the most destructive feature of the 21-22 draft budget. This decision must be urgently reversed. Many in the community have voiced their concerns about the arts budget cuts, and we support those concerns, and many in the community have also recognised the value of the arts to our economy and society. It's hard to understand why a rental subsidy for Live Nation, an American multinational, seems to have greater priority than the funding of local arts organisations. CAP calls on the Council to revisit the arts and creative budget to ensure that support provided is one that allows the arts and creative sectors to continue to flourish in this city. The arts are part of our DNA, so let us celebrate and encourage rather than cut and sadden our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne. I'm going to go back and see if Joanne Slatter is with us.
Good evening.
Hi, Joanne. Would you state your name and suburb and then please speak?
My name is Joanne Slatter from Elwood Park, and I wish to speak against an increase to property rates. I've lived in the city of Port Phillip for over 60 years. My children are sixth-generation City of South Melburnian residents. We have lived, schooled, worked and played in this municipality for many decades. I remember when we had 2 rubbish collections per week, our streets were regularly cleaned and our front lawns were mowed. Our rates were equitably shared and we felt that they were reasonable for the services provided. We no longer receive those services, but our rates have exponentially increased over time. On reviewing our own rates from 2007 to the present, we've seen an average increase of 7.05% per year, while CPI averaged 2.61% annually. Even when experiencing a decrease in the net annual value of our home in 2020, we still received an increase to our rates. According to council budget papers, the total value of residential properties has increased by 2%, although the ABS reports this increase as 2.9%. Council's budget papers are clear at Volume 2, page 110. At a 2% value increase, we are expecting at least a 4.5% increase to our rates this year, as we own a single freestanding rated property and quite possibly more, depending on final valuation. A 4.5% increase represents an additional $488. How do proponents arguing against a rate freeze determine that most people should expect to pay only an additional $27 per annum? In comparison with neighbouring councils, we pay 75% more than what a Stonington ratepayer would pay. In Stonington, we would pay $5,967. In the city of Port Phillip, we pay $10,854. In addition, our rates would be 23% less if we resided in Glen Ira and 32% less than in Bayside. Yet these areas have more square kilometres to cover, more local roads to maintain, and they deliver with less staff. With the increase in the number of properties in our municipality from unit development, one would expect an actual decrease in rates as the burden is shared by more properties. It does not end there. We are also required to pay an additional $84 for each on-street car park on top of these figures. Rates are no longer equitably distributed and services have deteriorated. We are overrated and underserviced. This is not how to run a multi-million-dollar business. A thorough review of strategy, structure, systems and processes is needed at the root of council administration to achieve equitable, lean, focused and value for money services to residents and ratepayers to avoid an endless burden of rate increases. Thank you.
You're on mute, Mayor.
Wow, I thought I'd get away with not doing that. We're going to take a 5-minute break now. It's going to take a shorter period of time to get the next batch of speakers ready to go. So in 9:05, we will resume the meeting. Thank you. With us or joining us for the first time, we are going to proceed. The next person I'm going to call on to speak to our submissions tonight is Denise Cox. Denise, are you there? All right, we might try someone else if Denise isn't there for the moment. John Bortolussi.
Can you hear me?
We can now, yes.
Yes. Good evening, Mayor and Councillors, and thanks for the opportunity to speak tonight. I want to talk to employee costs. Council's 21-22 budget details employee costs at $94 million. That's 4% higher than 2021. We note that according to the ABS, current wage growth is 1.5%. In addition to the overall increase, Council's 2021 budget details employee costs under 28 services. If one compares this data to Salary Explorer, one finds that half of these services have average FTE costs 24% above the Melbourne comparison. If one compares neighbouring councils on a staff cost per resident basis, Port Phillip is 94% higher than Bayside and 63% higher than Glen Ira. So the question is, against the backdrop of businesses and residents being very prudent with costs, why does Council believe its employees are more entitled than the rest of the community on a wage increase and salary level basis? Why does Council believe it's acceptable to be less efficient than the private sector? Why does Council believe it has the right to charge ratepayers to fund these current excesses? The answer is the funds collected by Council are not Council funds. They are ratepayer funds. Ratepayers expect Council to manage their funds effectively by using them only for services and projects required by most ratepayers. To conclude, our community would welcome a much needed rate freeze, which could be achieved by reviewing headcount and finding efficiencies in employee costs. Thank you. I should have said John Bortolussi from Middle Park.
Thank you, John. I'm going to go back to Denise Cox. Denise, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, fantastic. If you could state your name and suburb and then please speak.
Denise Cox, I'm an Elwood trader and also a member of the Port Phillip Advisory Group. COVID has hit St Kilda, Elwood and St Kilda East the hardest and are included in the list of the top 10 hardest hit suburbs in Victoria. St Kilda and South Melbourne had the highest rates of individuals accessing job seeker support in Victoria when it finished in March. Tourism numbers have dropped by 78%. Hotels are 10 to 30% capacity. 57% of businesses were relying on JobKeeper when it ended in March. The Business Advisory Group provided feedback for the 21-22 budget, and there was an overwhelming support for destination management, marketing and beautification of high streets, business retention and attraction. No funds can be found that have been budgeted for business support, the visitor economy and tourism, and the business retention and attraction strategy. The budget for reactivation of public space was $450,000 last financial year, and this financial year has decreased to $290,000. Beautification of high streets was also a priority of the group, yet only one high street in the municipality has been allocated a budget of $75,000 and all other high streets have been left out. Council has declared an economic emergency Yet this is not reflected within the budget, with only 35 cents for every $100 in rates being spent on economic development and tourism. This is a disappointingly low figure given how hard COVID has hit approximately 8,000 non-residential ratepayers in the city of Port Phillip. I ask you to do more to help the traders, as these businesses, if they survive the pandemic, will also be important drivers to increase employment opportunities and assist recovery in the years to come. This is a very disappointing budget that fails to support many businesses within the city of Port Phillip that have been severely affected by the pandemic. Thank you.
Thank you, Denise. Justin Halliday.
Good evening, Mayor and councillors. Justin Halliday here from St Kilda East. I'm speaking to you tonight about the lack of public open space in the area east of Brighton Road, and also the lack of investment to actually address this. St Kilda East, Balaclava and Ripponlea have historic lack of public open space and a compounding shortfall of council's capital investment in the budgets. The area has less than 5% public open space compared to over 20% for the rest of the city of Port Phillip. And in the proposed 4-year budget that we're talking about tonight, this area has less than 5% of the total capital investment of that budget, even though it represents almost 25% of the city's population. By underinvesting in this area east of Brighton Road and making no investment to increase public open space in the area, this budget further entrenches the inequity for the residents of the area. And I'm calling on the councillors of Canal Ward specifically, who represent the area, to take action for their constituents rather than perpetuating this inequity faced by our community. The first step to rectify the lack of public open space is to fund projects that deliver new public open space, such as the first stage of the proposed Green Line project, and these will improve access to public open space and amenity in the areas of St Kilda East, Balaclava and Ripponlea. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, councillors. And I'll just note that I am also a supporter of the rate rise, and I support our council officers being paid reasonably as well.
Thank you, Justin. I now call on Anne Michaels.
Hello.
Hi,
you hear
Anne.
me?
Yes, we
Hi.
can. If you could state your name and suburb, and then please make your submission.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor Crawford, and good evening, councillors. My name's Anne Michaels, and I'm from South Melbourne, and I'm also a member of the prosperous Port Phillip Business Advisory Group, and I'm speaking tonight to the paper we submitted in relation to economic development in the draft budget 21-22. One of our key roles is to seek advice from a cross-section of the business community in the city of Port Phillip on ways to ensure that business in our municipality continues to thrive, to generate sustainable employment and contribute to making Port Phillip a dynamic and prosperous city. It's actually well recognised that the contribution of businesses to the community is more than purely economic. Businesses give our municipality a sense of place, offering social wellbeing through the services we offer, as well as creating jobs and driving economic recovery. If we go back to prior COVID-19, it was already evident that many of our businesses across the municipality needed support. Our high streets and retail activity centres were spotted with vacancies, foot traffic's been down, and some vibrancy had dissipated. We'd commenced programs such as Love My Place to provide support in reactivation of these areas. Then COVID hit, and what was suffering before subsequently became a disaster, as has been experienced right across Melbourne and continues to be the case. At this point, and rightly so, Council declared an economic emergency. In reviewing the budget, we're therefore extremely disappointed with the inadequate funding for business support and development. Specifically, we're disappointed with the cut in funding for economic development in the draft budget, particularly since Council has declared an economic emergency. Comparing to the prior year budget and before COVID, the operational budget for economic development and tourism has been halved. As councils are aware, business precincts and main streets deliver huge contributions to the amenity of the city. They provide places for citizens to come together, to work and play, and are the cornerstone for creating a lively and livable city. They provide jobs and will help drive the economic recovery for the municipality. We're calling on councillors to review the funding for business support and to allocate the appropriate level of funding development, precinct activation and business support. We call on Council to address this economic emergency and reallocate funding back to economic development. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne. Lawrence Dowd.
Hi there. My name is Lawrence Dowd. I live in St Kilda West for 20 plus years, and I'm the Managing Director of Colonial Brewing Company, located in Bertie Street, Port Melbourne. Thank you. I run a family-run business. It's an independent brewery. We started off in 2004 in Margaret River, and in 2015 we bought a lease off the foreign-owned Carlton United Breweries, and we set up shop in Bertie Street. We currently employ over 45 people. We're very proud to be in the area, and a number of the pillars of our business that we find to be successful are focusing on sport. We sponsor the Port Melbourne Football Club, recently North Melbourne Football Club, a number of local cricket teams, basketball, etc. We also support the live music scene. We work with Mushroom Records. The late Michael Gudinski was a huge supporter of ours, and we did a number of successful album launches for Australian bands. And we also work in the community. During 2020, we supported a number of hospitality workers with food packs, and we've fundraised for local schools. So we're very much part of the community. We have a great track record of working with local businesses and communities groups. So it comes to my application. Recently, we worked with a number of local businesses to host a basketball series in the car park adjacent to our brewery. The event was marketed around Melbourne, and it drove a lot of tourists from Melbourne into the area, and it was a huge success. It ran over 4 weeks, and we had round-robin games, under-19 teams, we had women's matches, and it was a great success, and it brought a lot of people to the area. I guess the premise for this event was show the success of this space, and it proved that there's huge potential for this car park to be a bigger event space that we're very keen to help manage and promote. So we're looking for funding to resurface the car park and turn it into a proper basketball space that would be available for the community to use on weekends. We think that the Fisherman's Bay area, Bend area there, doesn't have any sort of public space like this, and we've got the space, and we know that we can manage it properly and promote it. So it's an incredible space. We're looking to hold lots more events there that the community can benefit from, and to promote tourism and drive businesses and help people in the area, which is sorely lacking right now. So hopefully you can look at our application, and we're more than happy for you to come down and have a look at it and talk further through it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lawrence. Former councillor and former mayor Dick Ross.
Hi, how you going? Can you hear me?
Yes, how are you, Dick?
I'm good.
Good.
I had half an hour stressing out trying to get in because people mistook me as a participant rather than as a...
Welcome back, Dickie.
Hi, Bondi, how you going?
Mr.
I've got 2 minutes.
You've got 2 minutes, but if you could say your name and suburb before you get underway, please.
Sure. Dick Gross, St Kilda. I'm here to talk about restoring the arrangement with the National Trust in Ripponlea, and I'm going to make 4 points. The first point is that the provision of open space is a traditional responsibility of local government. We talk about roads, rates and rubbish being the iconic statement about the traditional roles, but it doesn't include open space here, but that's because it doesn't start with R, and people love alliteration. If you look at the history, councils have been involved in not only the creation of St Vincent's and the St Kilda Botanic Gardens and gardens throughout the municipality and the maintenance thereof, but also they've sort of run the committees of management for the foreshore and for Albert Park. open space provision is a fundamental responsibility and role for local government. Secondly, there's been some squeamishness because the Ripponlea Gardens are outside the boundaries of the municipality. And I would refer everyone to subsection 8.4 of the Local Government Act 2020, which provides explicitly that if you need to in order to fulfill your duties, go beyond the boundary, that's kosher if you want to and need to do it. And I submit that you do need to do it. It comes to my third point, which is the need. In 2009, there was an open space review which demonstrated that the people living in Balaclava and Ripponlea have far less access to walkable open space than anywhere else in the municipality. It's dramatically less, and indeed the adjacent municipality can't help us out because that's also quite open space poor. So as a matter of equity, and equity is the big one, in an area where there's medium and high density living, the residents need open space and they don't have it. And my fourth and final point is economic efficiency. And this is the most efficient way of providing open space because it's there. Open space of the grandeur and size of Ripponlea Estate would cost Port Phillip normally about $500,000, and we're being asked at this stage to pay 1/10 that amount. That $500,000 would be $300,000 for maintenance, and usually $200,000 over years for capital renewal and improvements. So it's an incredibly
wrap up.
Incredibly efficient. So in summary, this is a question of economic efficiency, and we'd be mad to turn away from it. And indeed, Glen Ira is paying 5 times what we're suggesting to pay. Secondly, it's popular because this area is devoid of open space. And so for those other reasons, I urge you to return this paltry amount of money to the budget to restore this much loved and growing asset for the residents in that area. Thanks.
Thank you, Dick. I now call on Judith Klepner. Judith, are you with us?
Yes.
Great.
I've just been unmuted. Thank you and good evening, Mayor and councillors, and thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. As I indicated in my written comments through your Say site, I support the submission made by Progressive Port Phillip and the submission made by the Community Alliance of Port Phillip. In that, I argued for continuation of support for community childcare quality subsidy, the Friends of Suai, Covalima and local arts organisations in particular. But tonight, I have to say, it's been a very good demonstration of how far the role of local government actually extends. It does extend into community and social infrastructure. It does extend to providing and supporting and valuing cultural vibrancy. It does extend into creating infrastructure for the future. And we've heard from tonight residents, workers, educators, arts organisations, business organisations, volunteers, local community organisations speaking passionately for the areas in which they dedicate significant energy and effort, invaluable to our community. So I wanted to really put my focus tonight on the rates and money issue. I'd like to say to Council, congratulations on retaining and maintaining rate relief for those in financial distress. We need to resist the false campaign against maintaining rate revenue to support our community assets and our services. It's not a time, as has been outlined by many others tonight, to be cutting rates for some ideological reasons without regard to how local government can make such a big difference to their community's quality of life through services and by improvements to the physical environment that we share. Furthermore, at this time, the City of Port Phillip can borrow cheaply to renew and enhance infrastructure for the long term and achieve great value for the community by spending wisely. I don't believe that we should be sidetracked by an obsession to minimise rates for high value properties, nor cut services to important cultural and community organisations. This won't deliver us the quality outcomes, either in the short term or the longer term, that our community expects. Thank you.
Thank you, Judith. I'll now call on Natalie Davey.
Hello.
Hello.
I'm here. Hi. Thank you, Mayor and councillors. You've been listening to a lot of submissions tonight. I've slipped in, about half an hour ago, but it's very interesting hearing a lot of different people speak so eloquently on so many different things.
So, Natalie, can I get you to just state your name and suburb before you continue, please?
My name is Natalie Davey, and I'm a long-time resident of Elwood. And I'm speaking tonight as co-president of the Elstonwick Park Association. And in that role, we wrote as a council to, as an association to council in support of the submission by PCAN on the recent council plan and budget. Our association is an affiliate with PCAN, and the EPA committee as a whole endorses their forward thinking in regards to the climate emergency and the targeted actions and funding required by council to respond to it adequately. But further to that, in responding to the climate emergency from a catchment management perspective, we feel it is essential that council retains and strengthens their partnerships with Bayside, Glen Ira, etc., and other community organisations that are involved in catchment health. This can be done through their ongoing involvement and support of the positive developments happening upstream in the Elstonwick Nature Park. The EPA was gratified that many new Port Phillip councillors took the opportunity after their election to walk over the nature reserve itself, and appreciates the support of the previous council. The Nature Park's priorities to capture stormwater with potential use in Port Phillip's green spaces, improving water quality in Elster Creek through reduced nitrogen loads, and flood mitigation are a few of the many reasons for that support. Your draft strategy mentions that need, or the need, for a whole of catchment approach, and community bodies like EPA, whose members straddle the Elster Creek catchment, are uniquely placed to support and voice these aspirations. Port Phillip is one of the most densely populated areas in Melbourne and can only benefit through its contribution to the creation of a thriving wetland of green biodiverse space on its boundary, something Dick Groffs was just talking about with the relationship with Ripon Lee. Port Phillip residents have flocked to the former golf course over the course of the pandemic, and this will only increase as the nature park develops. The Nature Reserve will play a key role in improving water quality, enhancing Elster Creek's natural assets, and helping improve the bay's water quality. Port Phillip is justly proud of their beaches, and improving catchment health will help protect their amenity and beauty. Of course, this is not just for the people of Port Phillip, but all the other non-human creatures that rely on the health of this area from catchment to coast.
I'm just going to have to ask you to wrap up, if I may.
Yes, well, so the only thing I was going to add, of course, was the Melbourne Water Plan for flood mitigation, which I sincerely hope that the council will support. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Natalie. Leslie Rosenblatt.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
I can, Leslie. If you could say your name and suburb, and then please take your 2 minutes.
My name is Leslie Rosenblatt and I live in Elwood, in Canal Ward. Two things. One, a general comment about aspiration takes courage, consideration, leadership and care, and council has to take risks to meet the challenges of the climate emergency, the ravages to the arts and hospitality industries due to the COVID pandemic, the increasing vulnerabilities of residents in housing stress and insecurity, as well as the inclusionary confidence to assist the isolated, poor, disabled and distraught in our densely populated apartment dwelling community at the heart of Melbourne's inner south littoral zone. This means being willing to borrow for major improvements and projects as investments in the future, making the most of its currently good relationship to the state government through effective advocacy, better relations with the multitude of owners corporations representing strata apartment dwellers, and pursuing a transformative sustainable energy and waste recycling agenda. The protection, greening and expansion of public open space combined with water-sensitive urban design is also vital. The old mantra of rates, roads and rubbish has to be abandoned as a moribund, reductive and backward-looking slogan and replaced by a much more supple and engaged municipal partnership with the people of this city. In addition, I just want to make one more very brief comment about my concern about being advised that that the Port Phillip Urban Fresh Food Network and the funding that council provides of $20,000 a year to the Eco Centre to match its funding from its own resources to fund 48 weeks of a 4-hour volunteer coordination program on Friday mornings, I was told was threatened both by you, Madam Mayor, and by Councillor Baxter at a public meeting at Canal Ward. And it's distressing to me to learn that you don't intend to keep this much treasured program in operation past June the 30th of this year. And I can't understand what the rationale for that would be. One personal example of this great benefit of this program concerns my wife, who was diagnosed as living with Alzheimer's disease, and she's a regular attender there. And her medical consultants have told us how pleased they are with her engagement with the program. And Adrian, a woman by the name of Adrian who attends that program, spoke earlier in the evening about how it punches above its weight and it ticks all the boxes.
Yes, so Les, I am going to have to ask you to wrap up, please, sir.
Yeah, okay. Well, so those two things, one, the general comment, and two, please keep that program going, the volunteer garden program at the Eco Centre. Thank you.
Thank you, Les. I now call on Paul
Madam Mayor, sorry. Can I just ask for a quick clarification?
Sure.
I just know that Les used the words the program has I am told the program has been threatened by Councillor Baxter and by Councillor Crawford. I just wonder whether Les might clarify that to say that he was told by those councillors rather than those councillors threatened the program. Is that your understanding of the conversation, Les?
Absolutely, Tim. You confirmed that the program was threatened, not that you and the mayor were threatening it.
Thank you for that clarification.
Sorry, I know you didn't mean it. I just need to make that clear to anyone who might be watching, that's all.
Okay, so we're going to go to, we're going back to Phillip Husenroder. Are you with us, Phillip?
I am.
Thank you. If you could state your name and suburb and then please speak.
Sure. Good evening, councillors and mayor. My name is Phil Hoytzenroder, South Melbourne. I'm the Director of Wild at Heart Community Arts. I submit to you to reconsider the proposed cuts to arts funding in the 21-22 budget, and in particular to the proposed cuts to the songwriting and music program that Wild at Heart runs every week in South Melbourne for people who experience profound disability and mental illness. Many of those people who come are local residents of the City of Port Phillip and they do not receive NDIS funding. Our work is unique in the city, and we've been involved in the City of Port Phillip for nearly 20 years with council support. Every week, around 60 songwriters get to work with professional teachers to write their own original songs and tell their stories. They contribute to the well-being and vibrancy of the whole of the City of Port Phillip community and beyond through their music, through performances in local St Kilda venues, participation in Elwood open mic nights, involvement in Port Phillip festivals, and getting locally made music on the radio. This is the heart and soul of the City of Port Phillip's community vision, to be renowned as a cultural hub that continues to evolve and to innovate. And what Wild at Heart does is brings everyone into that picture, especially the people that others overlook and are hard for the City of Port Phillip to reach. And to evolve and innovate requires investment and support. So I encourage and urge the Council to back organisations like Wild at Heart that do that work for your community and in your community. I strongly encourage you to continue City of Port Phillip's renowned commitment to the arts and for Wild at Heart in particular. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Phillip. I call on Paul Hickey, please. Paul, if you could state your name and suburb and then please speak.
Yeah, good evening, Madam Mayor. Good evening, councillors again. Paul Hickey, I'm based in Middle Park. You've heard me over the last couple of meetings express grave concerns about what's happening with the rates, and I speak to this budget specifically with regards to the rates. The rating in this municipality is exceptionally high. Many people now are having great difficulty affording it. Even the very wealthy, who are paying huge taxes at a federal level, then have to find a huge amount of money to again pay taxes at a state level. And it's tax upon tax that just seems to be creating a culture of entitlement. This isn't necessarily to my point, but I have been quite amazed that in the few council meetings I have attended, there just seems to be this attitude by sections of the community where they can just attend council with begging bowls and they have an entitlement to receive ratepayers' money. And we have to have a change in attitude. That money has come from somewhere. It's come out of rates. It's come out of residents' pockets. Increasing number of them cannot afford it. And councillors, again, ask you, you must have an attitude that whenever money is spent, you are spending someone else's cash. This isn't some sort of Goldilocks pot that has descended from heaven. It has come out of someone's pocket. For those on high income, you know, they've already paid 50% tax on it. So they're having to work twice as hard just to pay the rates you're charging. For those not on the highest income tax bracket, they're still having to find the money. And I've listened to some other presenters tonight saying that they don't object to the rate strategy. Well, that's all good and fine if they can afford their home and pay for the taxes on it. But for people that have lived here for a reasonably long period of time, they shouldn't be taxed out of their home by Port Phillip Council. And, you know, when you look at your expenditure items, I would again ask that everything has to be evaluated and benchmarked for efficiency and effectiveness. And I do not believe that this is happening. My background is as a chartered accountant, and as I go through the expenditure items, you're just amazed that they are so far above comparable councils who service comparable populations with comparable demographics and service mix. In all measures, Port Phillip Council is way above it. And just to finish up, I think that benchmarking and a realistic reevaluation of what the philosophy and spending of this council is an urgent priority. And with money that is saved, is directed towards rate relief. It is a crisis. You talk about a climate crisis. We now have a rates crisis. Thank you for your time. Thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you, Paul. I now call on Ella Caldwell. Hi, Ella.
Oh, hello, Mayor. Hello, councillors. Thank you for your time. I'm Ella Caldwell. I'm a resident and ratepayer of St Kilda for many years, and I'm also the artistic director of Red Stitch Actors Theatre. I want to speak on the proposed cuts to key arts orgs funding. Red Stitch, the company that I work for, has an over 20-year-long history of making acclaimed, award-winning theatre for audiences in the city, as well as touring nationally and internationally to critical acclaim. In 2020 and in 2021 so far, we've employed over 350 artists and arts workers in spite of the impacts of COVID-19. Our impact on the local economy is estimated to be around $400,000 per annum, and That is just us. There are 5 other orgs that are facing these cuts. I appreciate this is a challenging time for councils and there are a lot of competing needs. So too is it a challenging time for artists and arts organisations. The impact of COVID-19 continues to weigh heavily on the sector. When we reopen after this current lockdown, we anticipate severely limited audience capacity again, likely a reduction of 75%. Loss of the $30,000 triennial funding will negatively impact artists and audiences in the city of Port Phillip. There is no question. It means people losing employment, many of whom who are artists who have struggled significantly over these last couple of years. I understand that the council has received numerous submissions appealing this decision. This, I believe, is an indication of the intrinsic value generated by the arts. We generate economic value, yes. We bring visitors to the city to engage with other small businesses, some of whom we've heard from tonight. Importantly, though, arts and culture goes far beyond economic value. Arts participation builds social cohesion, something we need more than ever, contributing to the reflection and shaping of national and individual identities. Multi-year funding agreements are essential to arts organisations such as Red Stitch Raucous, The Torch, Phillip Adams Ballet, Theatre Works and the Tapestry Workshop. Small to medium arts organisations use this multi-year secure funding to leverage crucial income from other sources so that we can do the work that we do with the limited resources that we do it with. We would like to increase employment for our local artists and increase the benefits of arts for our local audiences rather than cut them. We believe the city's vision of being a renowned cultural hub will be achieved by embracing these organisations who are proven leaders in their sector, who champion and elevate artists and who have the tenacity to create a lot of opportunity with a little. This is what we've been doing for decades. The city's 5th strategic direction states it will thrive by harnessing creativity. To harness the wealth of creativity at your fingertips in the city of Port Phillip right now, please consider continuing the opportunity for triennial funding for key arts organisations. And thank you for your time.
Thanks, Ella. I now call on Alison Richards.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, councillors, for your time. My name is Alison Richards. I live in South Yarra. I'm a theatre maker, arts and culture researcher, teacher and consultant. I'm also a past chair and life member of Theatre Works St Kilda. And as such, I'm a long-term visitor and patron of arts activity in the city of Port Phillip. I've donated a lot of my time over the years to arts in the municipality. I can attest to the outstanding contribution made by Theatre Works to community life over 4 decades. I also want to underline just how important the creative industries are to Port Phillip's ongoing vitality and economic success. Creative industries account for around 35% of economic activity in Port Phillip. Creative organisations and businesses produce flow-on effects, supporting activation and amenity for residents, workers and visitors across the municipality. Council's Arts and Soul Creative and Prosperous City Strategy 2018 to 22 was endorsed after thorough research and consultation. A triennial funding program supporting 6 key arts organisations to maintain staffing, plan strategically, build audiences and support quality programming, as Ella just pointed out, was an integral part of this strategic vision. I have been horrified to learn that there is no provision for this program in the new draft council plan or draft budget for 2021-22 after only 1 cycle. This threatens the capacity of the organisations concerned, forcing them back into competition for an already inadequate pool of project funding without evaluation or consultation. The City of Port Phillip should follow best practice to ensure that budget decisions are based on evidence. Thorough evaluation of arts and culture funding programs will, I'm sure, demonstrate value for money far outweighing the relatively minor scale of the total investment. I beg you in the meantime to restore budget allocation for the triennial program and avoid making a decision with almost certain negative impacts on the cultural and economic life of Port Phillip and on its reputation as a leader of and partner with Victoria's vital creative industries. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alison. Kristen Smythe.
Oh, it's me. Hello. Yes, sorry. Kristen Smith. Northcote resident, former Port Phillip resident on Carlisle Street. I'm an artist and former advisor for Professor Pat McGorry. I'm also transgender, and I also have a heady cold, so I do apologise.
You sound fine.
Thank you. I'm speaking on the proposed cuts for the triennial funding for the key arts organisations. I've just completed a season of sold-out shows at Theatre Works, performing the Gospel according to Jesus, Queen of Heaven. We had outstanding reviews across the Age, Herald and Arts Review, and provided an essential foundation of support for trans, non-binary and queer audience members alike, many of whom spoke to me after each show in tears, as they had experienced a moment of love and acceptance and resonance with live performance. This, as you may know, is what live theatre can do. It's a vital part of our culture, and perhaps more urgently, it's a critical connection and rallying point for people on the margins, those who feel stigmatised and victimised. Victoria's Mental Health Royal Commission has just experienced a multi-billion-dollar response that recognises that mental health is a critical part of the glue that holds our society together. Victoria has some of the most exciting trans and non-binary public health initiatives, one of which led to my own ability to transition in a safe and loving way 3 years ago. Port Phillip Council has a decision to make about which side of this story it wishes to be part of. To be part of the delivery of extraordinary moments such as the ones I spoke of at Theatre Works, it's vital that these arts organisations can continue to flourish with some degree of certainty and organisational strength, so that they can continue to provide this vital, critical support and cohesion for our community. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak tonight.
It's my pleasure, Kristen. Thank you for coming on and speaking. Tara Winslow.
Hi, everyone. I'm Tara Winslow, and I'm representing Elwood Childcare regarding reduce the amount of quality subsidy paid to community managed childcare services from 5% to 4%.
And Tara, could you just state your suburb where you reside and then continue, please?
Glen Iris.
Thank you. Please go on.
Thank you. I want to acknowledge the councillors for their time tonight and all they do for the local community. And thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight at this meeting on Boomerang Country. I'm here this evening on behalf of Elwood Children's Centre community. I've been working at this service since 2019 in a director role, and I'm proud to be a part of a community that values quality education and care in the early years profession at affordable price to families in the city of Port Phillip. We are concerned regarding the budget proposal to reduce the amount of quality subsidy paid to community managed childcare services from 5% to 4% of total educator's salary. This represents a decrease of more than $10,000 to our service annual budget, which will require the centre to find other solutions for these funds as we want to continue to provide quality education and care. A solution is an increase in fees, which is not ideal for many families after experiencing a difficult year in Victoria due to the pandemic. We are grateful for the City of Port Phillip support over the years with the quality subsidy funding, which has supported Elwood Children's Centre continue to be an exceeding service which we are extremely proud of. This funding has supported ECC in many areas which Penny Brown, a member of our parent-run committee, touched base on earlier tonight, providing affordable care and education for families in the community and supporting families in vulnerable and unique family situations. I would like to also highlight that this quality subsidy has also provided opportunities for educators to continue to extend their skills in the early year education, which is then shared with the wider community through room programs, formal and informal conversations with families, and information sessions. This year already, the service has been involved in many professional developments to support the wider community and provide quality education. Just to name a couple, understanding behaviours, supporting children with autism spectrum disorder, emotional coaching, team building, 5 ways to better conversations with children, as well as embedding Aboriginal perspectives and finding starting points to deeper knowledge of the cultural appreciation and inclusion practices related to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. These alone have supported the service to develop a RAP, a reconciliation plan, which we believe is important to implement meaningful Indigenous perspectives in the early years setting and the community, as we want to acknowledge and embrace the Boomerang land we live, learn and play on. While we understand the Council has limited resources and many demands on these resources, we believe the priority should be given into this budget to continue to invest in the education and care and safe places for families to access the best possible childcare services for their children, as well as collectively recover from the impacts of the coronavirus. We respectfully urge Council to reconsider the purpose to reduce the quality subsidy in 2021 to 2022 draft budget and resolve to retain the current rate of 5% of the salary. Thank you for your time tonight.
Thanks, Tara. I now call on Kat Mappison.
Hi there, Kat Mappison from St Kilda Road, Melbourne. Thank you for having me. I would like to talk to the budget in relation to our membership on the Prosperous Port Phillip Business Advisory Group. As a group, we have reviewed the Council's budget for 21-22 and we are disappointed with the inadequate funding for business support. Specifically, we are disappointed with the cut to funding for economic development and tourism in the draft budget, particularly given Council has declared an economic emergency. We seek Council's reconsideration of the funding for economic growth and development and make the following points. About 20% of Council's rate income is derived from rates on commercial and industrial properties, and only 35 cents for every $100 of Council expenditure is spent on economic growth and development, which is a significant disparity. Also a disappointingly low figure given how hard COVID-19 has hit the non-residential ratepayers in the city of Port Phillip, as well as others. Tourism in particular has been especially hard hit, with tourists visiting St Kilda dropping by 78% in the first 3 months of COVID-19, many in the hospitality, tourism and event businesses. Hotels experienced occupancies of 10 to 30% during the pandemic, and they're still in dire straits with continued lockdowns and border closures. So we're calling on councillors to review the funding for business support and reallocate some of the funding back towards economic development, commensurate with the needs identified in line with the previous budget, and to look at longer term funding for business support and commit to a more appropriate and fair share of funding in future budgets, the 2022-23 budget and beyond. Supporting business then helps business in turn to drive economic recovery for the municipality and to create jobs. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Kat. And I should be saying thank you to all of the speakers who have stayed up so late to contribute tonight. I'm going to call on Margot Brock.
Hello, my name is Margot Brock. I'm a resident of St Kilda and I also work in St Kilda. And I changed my working hours so that I could be a volunteer at the Eco Centre in the gardening group on Fridays. And the reason I did that is because I am passionate about the role of volunteers in our community. And I also felt I needed to earth myself a little with the work that I do. I joined the group and recognised that the coordinator is an essential aspect of the group. Walk with me now. Move up the ramp, next to the apple trees, beside the citrus, come onto the veranda. You're welcomed by the coordinator. She knows your name. She wants to know how your week's been. She asks you to sign in. I look around, 2 or 3 other volunteers are gathered under the peppermint eucalyptus. What they're doing is propagating little Indigenous local plants for the penguins. How do they know the penguins need more Indigenous plants? The coordinator. And there's laughter from the compost. One of the group calls out, "I'm working really hard." And we all laugh because he says that every week, because he is. The compost, the coordinator coordinator knows what to do, knows when it needs more of this or that, and educates us, instructs us. And then I hear the sound of sweeping. We sweep, we rake, we're volunteers. We've got time. We don't need to do anything other than look after this space, this environment. And we take the leaves and we put them in the compost. And I look at the salt bush, and we've been taught about how to use it to cook, to roast our veggies, how to harvest the warrigal greens. The coordinator showed us how to make pesto. I put too much garlic in mine. I'm sure my friends forgive me. And as I continue to walk along the veranda, I come to the area where she planted the fairy garden. The toddlers love it. The mums and toddlers come here because they, like the volunteers, feel that sense of welcome, of belonging, of safety. We are community-minded, community-spirited, and we have a lot of fun. And before we know it, the coordinator's calling us in, gathering us in, clean up your tools, put them back in the shed, come over here, I've cut up some fresh fruit for you. And we move towards, and the photos are taken. We all leave. She goes back inside, posts the updates, posts the photos, coordinates with all the other groups that have volunteers. We'll plant those little succulents for the penguins. We'll put the indigenous grasses into the sandhills. Volunteer services are essential. Please reinstate the funding for the volunteer coordinator for the garden group at the Eco Centre. Thank you, Mayor and councillors.
Thank you, Margot, for taking us there. Belinda Pye. Belinda, are you with us? All right, we might move on to Betty J.
Sorry.
Oh, you are there?
Yeah, sorry.
Belinda, so hi,
Thank you, Mayor and councillors. My name is
Belinda, you're very quiet. Can you get closer to your mouthpiece or speaker?
Is that better?
That's much better, thank you.
Okay. I'm a resident of St Kilda, coming up to 9 years. I speak to you as a volunteer member of PCAN, an action network I joined after their first community No Seats Spared event, Heat, Fire and Flood at Elwood College. I felt encouraged by the amount of community support this event had, and also the calibre of presenters, and felt the group engaged with community so effectively. Previous to that, I have been an active member of Beach 3182 Beach Cleanup. In my previous life, I never gave much notice to my impact selfishly. It was only after having children I realised the legacy I was leaving. Now I see the regular need for councils to take action, although it feels the Port Phillip's response does not give the same urgency. Comparing us to surrounding councils in our area, lacking in so many aspects of our community as it is, and it now looks as though the council is removing. I note the won't deliver section of the Port Phillip emergency response. It's imperative for council to create networks for businesses together and be educated on play their part. And you have dropped the sustainable business network event. Another won't deliver is active support to community greening. I know several people who live in houses and apartments are so keen to have work contributing to this. Moving it entirely really drowns out your audience. These are only small measures but can make a bigger impact, councillors believe, and could see reintroduction of some of these aspects have a reactivation of community in council's action on climate. One very poignant statement in the emergency response notes the reduced capacity to be present in the community and provide ad hoc and response advice and support. I believe that council has a huge impact on community engagement and could be extremely effective in educating the community, including businesses in this way. In my opinion, being present in the community in this matter is to our detriment and gives less of a voice to residents who feel strongly in. Recently, I attended the student strike for Pride, seeing the groundswell of support this is creating for youth. Youth of this electorate are politically aware and motivated for change. Council, in a positive intent through its climate action response, would bring great opportunity for Council to collaborate and build rapport with the future voters in this election. I recognise this feels like something that should be left to the state and federal governments, but it is much more likely to create change on a local than it is in the state or federally. I'd hate to think that Council is underestimating the community which we want this. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll call on Betty J.
Can you hear me?
We can. Yeah, if you could state your name and suburb and then please speak away.
Check 1, 2. Betty J. I live in South Melbourne. I'm an active member of the local community, a member of the Gardens, a member of many local groups. In my spare time, I volunteer at a soup kitchen feeding the vulnerable, which there is more and more of each week. I own a small business in St Kilda, which was hit hard with the lockdowns. I've effectively lost 70% of my business. I was slowly rebuilding when we were unfortunately locked down again. I'm passionate about the environment and community, and I'm here to talk about small business and the waste management problem in this municipality. And I'm going to request a support for both. I'm going to start with a story about a local business. There's a florist on Blessington Street called Atelier Fleur. The bins are the business's bins are regularly used by the public to dispose of bottles and takeaway coffee cups. And as a result, in the last lockdown, they were overflowing. Rather than the council adding more bins to the street and providing the community with a better waste management service, the council bin police took her bins away. So rather than offering support or even a green waste bin, because she is a florist with a lot of green waste, your council officers confiscated this business's bins. This is a local struggling business and has been punished because the locals have been using her bins to throw away coffee cups because the bins on the street are overflowing. Really want to know, how is this supporting local business in the community? She currently has no bins and every night takes her rubbish home to use her home bins. Last year, council finally implemented a FOGO trial, which the community loves and has been superbly happy with. That unfortunately has ended recently. Rather than expanding the program, council has taken away the 500 trial bins and replaced them with 8 community FOGO bins over 3 locations, which are already full, by the way. 8 bins for a community of over 100,000 residents and environmentalists. I'm here to let all you councillors know that myself and the community are bitterly disappointed right now. We demand FOGO to become a priority. We demand a clear waste management plan with definitive timelines. For a council that claims to be leaders in sustainability, climate emergency and economic emergency, I cannot see any environmental or financial sustainability reflected in this budget. We lack services, we lack efficiencies, and let's not start comparing ourselves to surrounding council that certainly have much lower rates and many, many more services. The fact that council wants to increase rates to the maximum proves that you are tone deaf of the wider community and are coming from a place of privilege and bureaucracy. I call for public recycle bins, which we do not have. I call for FOGO bins for the entire community. I call for greater support to local businesses. I call for education to the community for recycling rather than punishment via the bin police. I'm asking the council for increased value and efficiencies. I'm requesting a rate freeze to give everyone in the community a chance to recover, rebuild, and catch their breath after such a shocking year that continues to be painful for small business. I implore you all, please don't kick us when we're down. Thank you for your time, councillors. It's been a big night.
Thank you. I call on Janet Rosenberg.
Oh, hi, thank you, councillors and Mayor. Hi, I'm Janet Rosenberg, speaking for the prosperous Port Phillip Business Advisory Group. I am president of the Ackland Street Traders and I run a retail business in Ackland Street that has been impacted by COVID and the lockdowns. We are very disappointed the draft budget for economic development has been effectively halved from the previous budget. Given the declared economic emergency associated with COVID, the Council has failed to acknowledge that this financial year, commercial and industrial ratepayers will pay $25.34 million in rates, That amounts to almost 1 in every $5 that council collects from ratepayers. However, only 35 cents for every $100 of council expenditure is being spent on economic growth and development, a significant disparity to the contribution. This is very disappointing given the impact of the pandemic on our 8,000 business ratepayers. Businesses contribute to a community more than just economically. They are the cornerstone for people to come together socially. This needs to be recognised in council budgeting. We call on councillors to review the funding for economic development and, if possible, reallocate funding back to precinct activation and business support. We understand that it may be difficult to increase the overall budget this year, but with that in mind, we ask councillors to commit to longer-term funding of more appropriate and equitable business support in future budgets. The Business Advisory Group is working to identify a 4-year plan for projects that should be funded in future. Based on the current situation, we ask Council to consider allocating significant funding next budget to include $500,000 each for outdoor dining, small business grants and beautification grants, $1 million each for a destination marketing campaign and a voucher program where diners receive 20% back, such as in regional Victoria and the CBD. Council correctly recognises there is an economic emergency. What the business community is asking is that the budget responds, not only this coming year, but in the years to follow. It is going to be a long haul, and it would be encouraging to know councillors hear our pain and our hopes for a brighter future. We are asking that you work alongside us as we try to recover. Thank you.
Thank you, Janet. Jane Reid. Jane? All right, we might go on to Carolyn Hutchins.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening and to the councillors. I've lived in this city for 45 years and I live in West St Kilda. I was a councillor of the city of Port Phillip when and I'm here to talk with you about the Friends of Coralie Ling program. And I was a councillor when the Coralie Ling program began 21 years ago, following the invitation from our city to Xanana Gusmao and Jose Ramos Horta, the then leaders of East Timor, to visit our city to see how we could assist their newly independent country develop governance and community programs. Their cities and towns had been decimated by the independence struggle and the damage that the neighbouring country had done to their communities. On reviewing the annual report of the 1920 Friends of Coralie Ling program, I'm immensely proud of the work achieved there with the assistance of the people and council of the city of Port Phillip over this time. I'm therefore concerned to learn that our council is considering reducing or ceasing fund to this highly successful and rewarding program. It has been stated by some that it's done its job. Well, this is certainly not so. The City of Port Phillip has commitments to ongoing projects there. The community involvement is important. From our city, we've encouraged fundraising and donations raised from individuals, churches, schools, sporting and service organisations, led and coordinated by the City of Port Phillip. And it's encouraged schools like Albert Park College, together with the Port Phillip Basketball Association, has raised money and built a basketball court for the children at the secondary college in Swai. And I think this is really good to encourage more widely the involvement from our community with others. It's not unusual to have arrangements. Many councils have arrangements with other cities in other countries, but this is a program right on our border. Projects which we've been involved with are education, scholarships for teachers and nurses training, initiating health and hygiene programs about COVID, installation of different projects in remote villages surrounding there. The city of Port Phillip is relatively affluent, and the cost to residential household averages about only $2 a household. There's great support from people of this city for the work that's been done in East Timor in our name and for the strong relationships that have been established there. I strongly support the continuation of this program by the city of Port Phillip, and I strongly support the increase of the rate rise by 1.5% for others. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you, Carolyn. I'm going to go back to Jane Reid. Jane, I think you might have been having problems with your headset. All right, we're still having problems. I'm going to continue on while we try and get officers to work with you on that. Sarah Fleming.
Hello, good evening. I'm Sarah Fleming and I live in Elwood. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, please continue.
Like so many residents of Port Phillip, I really care about the environment and want to do whatever I can to reduce waste. I know of so many others who live in Port Phillip who are desperately keen to have food and waste bins provided by the council, and it's certainly been a hot topic on our community Facebook page. Providing residents of Port Phillip with food, composting and green waste bins will not only dramatically reduce the amount of waste that goes to landfill currently, but it can also be used to produce compost for many of the green spaces throughout Port Phillip. Some residents, like myself, try and compost as many food and garden scraps as we can, but my bins are always full. There's only so much compost you can use in a small garden. Curbside food and green waste collections have been available in other countries, such as the UK, for over 15 years, and have also proven to be successful here in many council areas in Victoria and New South Wales. I have spoken to residents of neighbouring Bayside who would not give up their food and green waste collections for anything. And they say that they barely fill one garbage bag destined for landfill each week now as a result. I've also heard that Bayside are planning to increase the collections of the food and green waste from every 2 weeks to once a week because they've been so successful. Like so many residents of Port Phillip, I wonder why we still do not have this service when so many of us care deeply about environmental issues and want to do whatever we can to help reduce waste. I've heard it said that because Port Phillip is so densely populated and there are so many apartments, it perhaps wouldn't work as well in these areas. But people who live in apartments still eat and prepare food, and they still care about environmental issues. If they can recycle their glass, paper and plastic, they can also recycle their food waste. It's just one more bin. I implore Council to prioritise the introduction of food and green waste curbside collections to all residents as soon as possible, so that we can make a positive impact on reducing waste and protecting our environment. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Kent Morris.
Oh, hello.
Hello.
Hello. Thank you, Mayor and Councillors, for this audience at this time. I'm on the lands of the Elwood Willem people in Elwood. I'm a proud Barkindji man, and I'm the CEO of The Torch, which the organisation which is one of 6 affected by the multi-year funding process. So I'm here to advocate for the renewal of the multi-year funding for the key arts organisations in the city of Port Phillip. And in this time, listening to all these wonderful submissions, reflected on the National Reconciliation Week theme this year, more than a word, reconciliation takes action. For over a decade, the Torch has been working in partnership with the city of Port Phillip on Yalukit Willem country as our hub, but working out in 16 prisons with Indigenous offenders and when they return back to their communities. And on our humble abode on the corner of Octavia and St Kilda Road, the artworks produced through this program come in, as do many of the artists. We also have so many members of the community visiting the gallery, connecting with artists, connecting with Indigenous culture. We have many people coming from outside the city of Port Phillip for this same process to become part of the solution to the problem of the over-incarceration of Indigenous people in the criminal justice system. Also, many international visitors visit the Torch, again, to purchase works, to visit the local community and to engage with Indigenous men and women, not only in the program, but who work at the Torch. So more than 70% of our staff are First Nations Australians, and half of those are men and women who have come through the program itself. So the connection and access to Indigenous culture and some of the challenges we face and the extraordinary work the Torch is doing on the lands of the Yalukit Willet in the city of Port Phillip in reducing recidivism for Indigenous men and women down to 11% against the average of 55% return to prison, providing that employment, providing the economic benefits that the whole community enjoys. I think key aspects of why I'd like to passionately advocate for the reinstatement of that funding. And I'd also like to have a shout out to the other organisations who I know in connection with the Torch provide that sense of connection and belonging. But it's more than that. It's that ability for people to have a space within the arts to learn and to access cultural aspects that they may not have access to, generally speaking. And of course, the City of Port Phillip has been a great supporter of the Torch and this move towards resolving and addressing the issue of Indigenous incarceration and providing that landing point for people to connect to culture and have those discussions and to engage with First Nations Australians. So I'd like to finish up by saying, please seriously consider reinstating that triennial funding for the key arts organisations, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Kent. I now call on Jane Reid.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Welcome, Jane.
Oh, good, great. Good evening. Good evening, Madam Mayor, councillors and council officers. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Jane Reid. I live in St Kilda. I'm a City of Port Phillip ratepayer. Firstly, I would like to advise that I strongly support the 1.5% rate increase. And then I'll just talk about some things that are important to me. So firstly, safe bicycle and walking facilities. Given the City of Port Phillip is the most densely populated local government area in Victoria, we need to encourage cycling, walking and public transport to avoid congested streets, roads and heavily polluted air. I strongly support the Inkerman Street Safe Cycling Corridor. Bicycle lanes need to be physically separated from motor vehicles. 2, funding free access to Ripponlea Gardens. This is a beautiful natural space and important given the large percentage of people in the municipality who live in apartments with no outdoor area. 3, positive action on climate change. COP declared a climate emergency. Strategies are needed at all levels of government to prevent the catastrophic effects of climate change, which will occur if urgent action is not taken. 4, the Eco Centre, the Elwood and St Kilda Neighbourhood Learning Centre, Theatre Works. These are such valuable resources and provide so much for the community. 5, well-funded services. I believe well-funded services are required to ensure the City of Port Phillip continues to be inclusive, livable, sustainable and vibrant. As I said before, I am a resident and ratepayer of the City of Port Phillip. I support a rate increase. I support my rates being increased to ensure services are maintained. Thank you, Madam Mayor, councillors and council officers for all you do for this great community.
Thank you very much, Jane. I now call, to Peter Moriatis.
Hi.
Hi,
Can you hear
Peter.
me?
Yes, we can. Please go ahead.
Good. My name's Peter Moriatis and I live in St Kilda, and I'd like to speak in support of the PCAN submission. The United Nations Secretary General said last week, we are reaching the point of no return for the planet. We are ravaging the very ecosystems that underpin our societies, and we risk depriving ourselves of the food, water and resources we need to survive. Former Admiral Chris Barry said this morning on Radio National that we are the last generation which still has an opportunity to act on climate change. Future generations will not. In short, we are now counting down to what is openly recognised as planetary catastrophe. This means every level of government should be doubling down to address this. But in Port Phillip, the Council has chosen in its draft plan to not even maintain existing sustainability practices, let alone strengthen climate action as our circumstances scream out for us to do. Some stark examples if the current plan is unchanged. The sustainability section of Council will not be able to initiate ordinary face-to-face public engagements. Programs to reduce community greenhouse emissions will be dropped. Assisting business to act sustainably will be dropped. A course for local environmental leaders will be withdrawn. There will be no funding to support reductions in Port Phillip's 2 million tonnes of community greenhouse emissions, when it is now quite feasible to do so. From the perspective of community safety, there is no more important safety issue than acting on the climate crisis. The councils around Port Phillip are doing so. Stonington, Bayside, Glenera, Kingston have all put in place climate action plans and are acting on them. We call on all councillors to come together to at least maintain all existing sustainability measures and agree to insert in the final plan the development of a climate emergency action plan by this year's end. Thank you very much, councillors.
Thank you, Peter. I call on Estelle Ihaz. Apologies if I've got that pronunciation.
Oh, hello, Mayor and councillors. My name is Estelle Ihaz.
Ihaz, thank you very much.
Yes.
Yeah, if you
Thank
could
you.
state your suburb then, and please speak away.
Sure. Firstly, apologies in advance for my voice. I'm actually recovering from strep throat, so bear with me. I was
Thank you
previously
doubly
based in
for
Elwood.
being
Thank you. I was previously based in Elwood, now in Brighton, and the City of Port Phillip ratepayer. I am a loving mother to a toddler and volunteering my time at Poets Grove Family and Children's Centre, helping them to redevelop their website and implement a learning management system. Tonight I'm speaking in regards to the proposed cuts to the quality subsidy for childcare centres in the City of Port Phillip. Mayor and councillors, my toddler attends Poets Grove Family and Children's Centre. My family would be an absolute loss without the high level of care, support and guidance we have received from Poets Grove management and educators. I hold serious concerns regarding the intention to reduce the quality subsidy. This funding cut will have grave and negative consequences for every child, family, educator and non-profit childcare centre. Reducing funding will reduce the quality of care our children receive. Evidence shows quality education in the 0 to 5 year age group is paramount in establishing the foundations for healthy relationships and positive lifelong learning outcomes. The quality of attention and love my toddler gets from his educators is simply astounding. My son's face lights up in the morning when I drop him off because he knows he will be looked after. He knows he will be kept safe in the arms of people whom he trusts. These educators hold a serious duty of care for my son and every child they interact with. The level of attention he receives is due to the thoughtful management and retention rates of high-quality educators. The other key factor is the acceptable level of educator-to-child ratios. If the City of Port Phillip goes ahead with its plan to reduce the quality subsidy, these educator-to-child ratios will be affected. My concern is that the level of care will go down. Our children will suffer as a result. Budget cuts may be made in centre programming and staff retention rates will go down as educators struggle to maintain more children. The quality subsidy enables our family to afford childcare. Without it, the cost of keeping my son in childcare at Poets Grove will go up. My family is on one average income. We are still recovering emotionally and financially from the devastating effects of COVID-19. I was made redundant illegally while on maternity leave and I'm yet to find work. I don't know where else we could cut back. The plan to reduce the quality subsidy for childcare centre is not only unfair, it's unethical. I think it goes against all the community values I believe exist within the City of Port Phillip. Do not enable this plan which will harm our children, family and educators. Please reject the plan cuts to the quality subsidy. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Sister Stella. Appreciate that. Judy Gunson.
Thank you, Mayor and councillors. It is very late now, and I appreciate everyone being here to listen to us. My name's Judy Gunson, and I live in St Kilda East. I'm a member of Pecan and Extinction Rebellion Port Phillip. We are in the midst of a climate emergency, and we've left action until it's almost too late. We face the collapse of everything, as Peter Moraitis so eloquently explained. Local governments have led the way globally by declaring climate emergency, and a number of our neighbouring councillors have developed climate emergency plans so that action on climate can inform decision making in every area of local government. The Port Phillip Council needs to start to treat our climate emergency declaration as more than fine words. We, the people of Port Phillip, need you to act, as Greta Thunberg says, like our house is on fire, because it is. We want community emissions reduction policies and targets, blue-green infrastructure to enhance soil and water health, integrated transport policies and more. We want a proper climate emergency plan with targets and ways of measuring their implementation. We don't want a piecemeal approach that says we're already doing enough. And to achieve this, we need ongoing community engagement, education, consultation, activation to ensure that this plan is as effective as possible. In line with the new local government requirements for deliberative engagement practices, I ask that Council immediately fund a Port Phillip Citizens' Assembly on climate to engage our local community in the creation of a Port Phillip climate emergency plan. Acting on the climate emergency must be our priority over the next decade. The current budget in no way reflects the absolutely critical nature of this commitment. We can and we must do more. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Judy. Robert Davis.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, sir, if you could.
Good.
Look,
my name is Rob Davis. I come from St Kilda East, from Ardoch, and I'm part of the Pecan group. After declaring a climate emergency 1.5 years ago, there has been very little work done on this, and I think we have three options. One, follow what our neighbouring cities have done, Glen Ira, Bayside, Stonington, and work hard at formulating a comprehensive climate action plan. An alternative would be to have a minimal climate plan, and I would suggest that a minimal one would be to get a plan to have Stonington off gas in a period of time. A third option would be for the council to actually rescind the emergency climate plan, climate action, the climate emergency. Rescind that if you had the ability to do that. But there's sitting on the fence is doing nothing. Bye.
Is that it then? Thank you, Robert.
That's it.
Okay, great. Thank you, sir. Rob Mahoney.
Hello, good evening. Can you see me?
We can't see you, but we can hear you, sir.
Oh, that's something. Okay, here we go. Got a lot of voices here tonight. Thank you for your patience. It's quite late. I won't speak for long. Port Phillip councillors and mayor. My name is Rob Mahoney and I'm a long-term Port Phillip resident and ratepayer in East St Kilda. I'm a member of Extinction Rebellion Port Phillip, which now has 450 members. Many countries and municipalities across the globe have pledged to implement programs to address the greatest problem facing humanity, global warming, while a growing consensus about climate change and its effects arcs across the political divide in many parts of Australia. In the 21 months since Port Phillip declared a climate emergency, the Port Phillip Council has highlighted sustainability as a priority, yet you only have a staff of 8 in that department, 1% of your workforce. Planning and implementing any significant program in a city this size must surely need a lot more investment than that. This alone beggars belief. To mention a few more of the credibility gaps in your budget, Balaclava and Ripponlea won't be getting funding for open spaces in this year's budget. St Kilda East will only benefit by having a small project funded in Alma Park. It's difficult to understand why that is, when they are held by many to be the suburbs most in need of improvement. Also, why is the Pecan Green Line proposal being ignored? The eastern seaboard of the USA, the Torres Strait Islands, and the low-lying islands of the Pacific are now threatened by inundation. How are you planning towards similar events happening in low-lying suburbs here in Port Phillip? Surely it's your duty of care as local administrators to plan and educate towards that sad future, let alone other disasters yet to come. In conclusion, how can you not increase the sustainability budget and establish a genuine climate action plan, considering the seriousness of the climate emergency facing us? Thinking global and acting local is a great slogan, but means nothing without significant change. And I thank you for your time.
Thanks, Rob. Now, councillors, that's the end of our speakers, but we do have some to be read out by Kirsty Pearce. So the first one that Kirsty's going to read out is from Lee Raymond.
Through you, Mayor, and the statement reads, I live outside Port Phillip but come to attend theatre productions at Red Stitch and Theatre Works. When I come to the theatre here, I organise a small party of friends. Last year before COVID hit, we planned to come to see more than 6 productions. This year so far we have seen 2. When we come to the theatre, we go out to dinner locally, spending on average around $400 for each outing. The theatre companies depend on triennial funding to plan effectively for good productions. We come to the theatre because they are good productions, and we eat locally because the restaurants are good. Defunding arts organisations affects the companies themselves, but the greater impact is probably on other businesses in the municipality. Please reconsider and reinstate triennial funding to the 6 organisations.
Great. Now we are going to hear from Chris Hunt.
Through you, Mayor. Port Phillip must start to treat their climate emergency declaration as more than words. We, the people of Port Phillip, need you to act like the emergency is real. We want community emissions reduction policies and targets, blue-green infrastructure to enhance soil and water health for mitigation and adaptation, integrated transport policies and more. We want a proper climate emergency plan with targets and ways of measuring their implementation and results. We do not want a piecemeal approach. Above all, we need ongoing community engagement, education, consultation and activation to ensure that such a climate emergency plan is as effective as possible. This must be the priority of all of us over the next decade. Street sweeping and waste collection will not get us there. A tiny sustainability department will not get us there. We can and must do more.
Okay, so Julie Hourigan.
And the statement reads, I oppose to any proposal to stop supporting free entry for residents to Ripponlea Estate. It is a much needed garden space for residents, and I have very much enjoyed the ability to utilise that space more frequently than would be possible if I had to pay full fee for entry.
Short and sweet, great. Now we are going to, apologies, I'm not. Liv Mitchell.
Through you, Mayor. Thank you for bringing environmental and socially aware policy back onto the agenda. I write in support of the initiatives outlined by Progressive Port Phillip in its submission to Council. PPP submissions for budget cutbacks to maintain and build crucial services to maintain equity have my full support. 400,000 on precious street cleaning and a rate freeze is unacceptable at a time when climate change actions such as organic waste collection and stormwater management must be top of the agenda. As a flat owner and low income earner, I do not support the rate freeze if that disadvantages the vulnerable in our community through reduced services. Targeted rate support makes sense. As a resident of 35 years, I was devastated by previous council's overdevelopment in St Kilda. I was driven to act at the election. I feel like we have chosen the right council for the job at this critical time.
Jacqueline, Jacqueline Robinson. Through you. I am a long-term resident ratepayer and general manager of Raucous Theatre Company, which is a multi-award winning ensemble of artists with and without disability, which has been based in Port Phillip for 21 years. We make and present inclusive work and offer a program of exceptional arts experiences for the local community and visitors. The Council's draft vision aspires to create a legacy for generations to come, yet the Council is proposing to discontinue the Key Arts Organisation funding program, which supports 6 significant arts and cultural organisations. This makes no sense in light of the incredible contribution of our organisations have made over many years to build the city's reputation as a cultural hub valued by residents and visitors alike. We contribute to the inclusivity of our city and the social health and wellbeing of our community. We contribute to the local economy by offering employment to diverse local artists and art workers, and our programming and events attract visitors who in turn are customers for our local traders and businesses. We put the relatively small investment from council to good work and leverage further funding from philanthropic trusts and other funders, and this goes directly back into our local economy. It would be a massive loss for our city and our community not to nurture the creativity, vitality, energy and drive of all of these extraordinary organisations. I urge you to demonstrate commitment to the city's vibrant cultural life and continue to support these outstanding organisations through the Key Arts Organisations Funding Program. Now a submission from Jenny Roper.
Through you. A resident and ratepayer of the City of Port Phillip, I am compelled to let you know my concern of the rate increases we are all experiencing. I have many friends, single mum and dads, neighbours, and know of many members of the local community that have lost their jobs due to COVID and are financially struggling. I understand that you intend to increase our rates yet again. You have said 1.5%, but as recently seen in the draft budget on page 110, it says residential is 4.5%. What actually is the figure of the rate increase? We are paying higher rates here in Port Phillip, more than any of my friends that live in close proximity to the area. I have heard you advise the community that you will have to cut services if you don't increase rates, but you won't have to increase rates if you find efficiencies in your budget. You found money last year, you can do it again this year. This pandemic has hit myself, neighbours, family, friends and the local community hard, and now is not the time to hit us with more rate rises when we are all struggling financially. I am hoping that this year you could do the right thing for your community and not increase rates in 2021. The community is hurting and we need you to not increase our rates.
Gina Fisk.
Through you. The council plan well acknowledges our community concerns that climate change is projected to lead to higher temperatures, increased flooding, rising sea levels, changing rainfall patterns and more extreme storms. Our community knows these impacts will get worse unless new integrated water management solutions are established. Elwood residents experienced changes in 2011 when severe flooding of Elster Creek and Elstonwick Park caused damage to hundreds of homes, businesses, schools and public open spaces. I therefore commend Council's commitment to firstly continue the work of the Elster Creek Catchment Partnership on the flood management plan. Secondly, to co-fund the mitigation proposal for Elster Creek with Melbourne Water to achieve sustainable solutions as part of the Elstonwick Park Master Plan for creating a wetland and nature reserve. This will lead to new opportunities to achieve council sustainability goals and targets, including flood mitigation benefits achievable for optimal water retention diversion needed for a 1% flood event. Water quality treatment will occur by removing nitrogen contaminated water before it enters the bay from Elster Creek. Water will be harvested and recycled as an alternative to potable water for use on city public parks and gardens. And greater biodiversity and public open space will be accessible for the community to contribute to and experience nature's environmental values. The Elsternwick Park Association and Port Phillip Environmental Emergency Action Network are committed to jointly work with Council to realise these outstanding sustainable solutions.
And I think everyone, and correct me if I'm wrong, will be happy to hear that this is the last submission.
Through you, Mayor, this is indeed the last submission.
Richard Ludlow.
I have been researching the council draft budget and have discovered the following in volume 2 on page 110 and page 113. My questions to councillors are the following. 1, are residential rates being increased by 1.5% as declared publicly, or 4.5% as shown in the draft budget papers on page 110 in volume 2? 2, if there are 1,290 new rateable properties in council in 21-22 at a base average rate of $1,791.89, which equates to $2,311,538.10 in council income. Why is the council asking for a 1.5% increase in rates when this amount is already accounted for by the increase in rateable properties in the 21-22 year? 3, where the City of Port Phillip Council is made aware of these new rateable incomes when draft budget papers were being prepared, or was this information not released to councillors during the draft budget preparation process, which may have changed the voting decisions of the informed councillors? End of submission.
Great, thanks, Kirsty. Okay, councillors, are there any clarifying questions to the officers in relation to the submission or the overall submissions tonight? No. Councillor Catt, Councillor Copsey.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Sorry, I was struggling with my chat button there. I was just wondering if I could ask about what we've heard the submissions tonight, and we'll presumably shortly take a vote on receipt of those. I'm just wondering what the next steps in the budget process are from here.
Will I go to Peter Smith, our CEO, to respond to that, or is that Kirsty?
Through you, I might get Kylie Bennett to answer that question
Bennett
for you, and if she's not there, I'm happy to do that.
Through you, Mayor, in terms of next steps, Council have got a motion before them in terms of considering the submissions tonight. Council will then deeply consider and reflect on the feedback that we've received from many members of our community tonight, but also the written submissions that have been made. The budget itself will be presented to Council for consideration on the 23rd of June, and there may well be some changes between the draft that went out for consultation and the final that's considered on the 23rd by Council. That will be available on our public website the Friday prior to the meeting for community to consider. There'll also be an opportunity for the community to give further consideration to that document.
Thank you. Are there any other clarifying questions of officers? I can't see everyone, so I'm just checking in before I... May I ask one clarifying question, perhaps, of the CEO? There was a lot of stats and numbers given tonight. Is there any way of clarifying them in the near future so we can consider to see if consider them as part of the process?
Through you, Mayor, there's a lot of financial information and statistics in the draft budget, and people have interpreted those in different ways. It's clear from the number of submissions tonight. We would endeavour in the final budget papers to give a little more clarity around some of those figures so that people are able to interpret them consistently. I hope that answers your question. You obviously can take further questions on budget night if there's need for further clarification around some of those figures, but it's clear from the many submissions tonight that people have read different figures into budget. It's up to us to try and communicate it more clearly, and we'll certainly work on that between now and the final budget papers to try and present that information in a way where we can get a more consistent interpretation and greater understanding of it. We need to be transparent on it for our community.
Okay, great. Any other further questions before we move? All right, so I've already got a mover and a seconder. So Councillor Pearl to move and Councillor Bond to second. Councillor Pearl.
No, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Bond?
No, thank you.
Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? You're going to have to put it in the chat because I can't see you all. No, I'm going to take that. Councillor Pearl, go back to you to close.
No, thank you.
It's too late. All right, I'm going to put that under division to the vote. So Councillor Baxter.
4.
Councillor Bond.
4.
Councillor Clark. Councillor Clark.
4.
Councillor Copsey.
4.
Councillor Crawford. 4. Councillor Consolo.
4.
Councillor Martin.
4.
Councillor Pearl.
In favour.
Councillor Sirikoff.
4.
So that motion is carried. And just before we close the meeting for tonight, I'd like to thank all councillors and officers for their patience, and to members of the public. We have a very engaged community, and thank you very much for all of your submissions tonight. We've got a lot to take on board and think about. So there being no further business, I declare the special council meeting closed.